regular meetings of the Sonoma City Council and concurrent regular meeting of the Sonoma City Council as the successor agency to the dissolved Sonoma Community Development Agency. It is Monday, April 18th, and we have just come back from closed session, so we are reconvening. I'm doing the call to order, and I would like Michael Israel to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would stand and come to the podium.
Okay. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Michael. All right. So with that, I believe we will go ahead and do roll call. And Rita, if you would be so kind as to read the names.
Councilmember Gramonti? Here. Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Headley? Here. Councilmember Cook?
Here.
Mayor Gallen?
Present. And with that, I'll go ahead and report out on closed session. And the report out is we have given direction to staff. The next items on our agenda are comments from the public. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes up for council consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, please step to the podium and speak into the microphone. Begin by stating and spelling your name and address.
Good evening.
Mr. Brown.
Ken Brown, 1396 Lubeck Street, here in Sonoma. And as we were saying the pledge, I was thinking about Bernie Sanders. And there's a lot of Bernie in that pledge. And so this coming Sunday, the 24th of April, we're going to have the Bernie Blues and Barbecue at the Sonoma Veterans Building. 2 to 4 are speeches. 4 to 8 is music. We've got the Junior Boogie Band, Tommy Thompson and Friends, and Barry the Fish Melton from the Country Joe Band. Got tri-tip trolley serving food, and we'll have voter registration. Everybody should register to vote. And it's going to be an amazingly wonderful, pleasant event. On April 29th, the Community Services and Environmental Commission is going to have Arbor Day in the amphitheater in the plaza. That starts at 11 o'clock. We're grateful that Assembly Member Bill Dodd will be our featured speaker. We're going to present the Rotary Conservation Award to Johanna Kemper, a wonderful gal here in town. Tom Russet is our MC. Miss Denise Wilbanks is co-sponsoring this event with myself. The following day, April 30th, at the foot of the Montini Trail, we'll be planting a Jack London coastal oak in honor of Jack London. And that is at 10 o'clock on the Montini Trailhead. And council members should have gotten an invitation. I hope you come out to both events, and we look forward to seeing you there, except for Gary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken.
That's only because I'm out of town that week.
Good evening, Mayor Gallion and council members. I'm Georgia Kelly, Mitchell Way in Sonoma. On March 21st, the City Council, I want to refer to the evening where the city staff presented the ordinance, the leaf blower ordinance, to the City Council for voting. And at that time, I mentioned that it wasn't accurately titled because the title left off that the ordinance was banning gas-powered leaf blowers and it made it very unclear as to what it was really banning. So the title of the ordinance said, quote, "to regulate and prohibit the use of leaf blowers within the city of Sonoma," unquote. It did not say prohibit gas-powered leaf blowers, as was brought to your attention that evening. So the title of the ordinance was misleading. This made it very easy for opponents of the ordinance to only list the title in their petition, thereby omitting the true meaning of the ordinance itself, which was a compromise position proposed by the Sonoma Neighbors Against Leaf Blowers and arrived at by the Sonoma City Council after many months of presentations and listening to the public, including opponents. The compromise was to prohibit only gas-powered leaf blowers and to allow electric ones. I fault the city staff for this error, which made the opposition much more powerful in their petition gathering. There was no mention on their petition that electric leaf blowers were still allowed. Instead, they emphasized the let the voters decide idea without mentioning that a compromise decision had already been reached. After many years of discussions and after many presentations on the health hazards of these machines and the environmental damage caused by the emissions spewing forth from them. One of our Sonoma Neighbors Against Leaf Blowers sent an email to a city staff member asking, have gardeners and landscapers been notified that the council passed this ordinance and what its provisions are so that they can prepare for July 1st in the event that the petition fails to qualify? The city clerk says, quote, "We decided not to send out information or advertise until the validity of the referendum petition being circulated has been determined. If the referendum petition does not qualify for the ballot, then of course we will inform the public." By withholding this information and mistitling the ordinance, I believe that this has given the opponents the upper hand in how they presented the petition. And I do fault the city staff again for withholding this information from the public, from making it known to the public. And I think this is a serious problem. I would like the city attorney to answer if this would in any way invalidate the petition that has been circulating, because people did not have the information they needed when they signed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. Who else would like to speak on public comment? Please step forward.
Hi, Lisa Summers on Newcomb Street in Sonoma. I just wanted to speak to this referendum really quickly. I'm sorry, I'm out of breath. I just rode my bike down here. There's a misconception that if this ordinance is overturned, that gas-powered leaf blowers are suddenly going to become legal, because they are not and never have been legal. As soon as you turn one on, they violate the municipal code, the noise ordinance, because the average decibel level of a leaf blower is 95. And the noise ordinance states there's a 70 decibel limit. So you're just going to have an enforcement problem that's distributed differently. The other thing I wanted to mention was I just got off the phone with the RCPA, which is the Regional Climate Protection Authority. And Sonoma will soon be on the list of cities that are required to electrify landscape equipment, mandatory in Cotati, Healdsburg, Petaluma, Sebastopol, and Windsor. Not currently Sonoma, because at the time this was drafted, the City Council had not yet passed this ordinance. So we will be added to that list of cities this summer, because it reflects the will of the City Council and not what is the political outcome of that referendum. This document is currently in draft and public comments, including they're accepting comments from the CSCC, and City Council is expected to add our name to that list of cities. I think it speaks very poorly to the City of Sonoma, whether or not they have any control with the outcome of the ballot measure, to pass or overturn an ordinance that is specifically outlined in the climate action plan of the county to reduce emissions. I mean, it very specifically says to electrify landscaping equipment. So the city has a responsibility, I believe, to participate in the county's climate action goals along with other cities in the county by reducing emissions that, according to the plan, electrifying landscaping equipment. And the results of the ballot measure do not change the intention of the City Council, which is 3 of 5, to honor this commitment by passing a leaf blower ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak, please step up.
David Eicher, E-I-C-H-A-R, 1110 Limmel Court. And I would just like to say that regardless of what happens with the ballot initiative and the petition, that I think the City Council should move forward and purchase the electric leaf blowers and replace the gas leaf blowers. It could set an example, just like the school district did. They no longer use gas and they only use electric during certain hours when their children are not in school. So I think, of course, one of the things that would be needed is there's a $10,000 estimate for the budget. And from what I understand, there's the budget for next year. It looks like it may be in there, but hopefully we can just find $10,000. If you're going to spend it next year, might as well spend it sooner rather than later, and just appropriate $10,000 to allow the Public Works to purchase the electric leaf blowers and get them out there and used before the leaves start to fall in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak at this point? If there's no one, okay, thank you very much.
My name is Deborah Dado, and I live on Bragg Street in Sonoma. My comments are in regard to the Broadway and Clay Street housing project. I moved to Sonoma from Marin County 17 years ago because it was too loud and the traffic and the congestion became too much. 1 year after I moved to Bragg Street, the Lodge at Sonoma opened its doors and the area became loud and the traffic and congestion became too much. The hotel's equipment malfunctioned the day they went operational. Machinery made blood-curdling noise, amplified music occurred outside late at night, large generators were placed outside the street powering light shows and music inside the hotel. There were late-night deliveries and, of course, an omnipresent employee parking problem, illegal U-turns, and jackknife trucks in the middle of Clay Street near Broadway. It was only after I went to city council meetings, made calls to the police department, and had many meetings with David Goodison did things start to settle down. What remained constant over the years, however, was employee parking, illegal U-turns, and the jackknife trucks in the middle of Clay Street. Through David's persistence, there have been times when traffic congestion and the parking problems have diminished, but they always return. These things apparently cannot be controlled over the long term. There is a traffic study going on right now, and traffic and congestion are noticeably diminished. For 16 years, the residents of South Sonoma have had to negotiate around trucks and deal with congestion caused by the traffic to the Lodge and to Traintown. Then, 2 months ago, everything changed. In the last 60 days, much of the traffic and parking has died down in what appears to be preparation for a traffic study related to the Saha development. Something that couldn't be done in 16 years has been accomplished in just 2 months. The Lodge employees are no longer parking on Clay Street and waking us up in all hours of the night. The delivery trucks now have a loading zone painted in the last month and are not jackknifed, using up 2/3 of Clay Street for deliveries, which has caused safety issues and congestion. The change has occurred at the same time this traffic study is being done. It appears orchestrated, and we do not appreciate it. And by the way, I just want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Agramonte for coming to the Saha meeting so that she could hear directly from her constituents. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? So with that, I will go ahead and close the public comment section. I believe we are at meeting dedications. Mr. Edwards and I believe Mayor Pro Tem Agramonte.
Yeah, I think I'd like to. I'd like to close in memory of John Earl Slack, who passed away recently, and he was the owner of, they say proud owner of Universal Auto Repair. He is survived by his living children, Jeffrey, Lindsay, and Brooke, and his ex-wife and lifelong friend, Diane Barker, his mother, Melanie Shern, and her husband, Gene Shern. And that's John Earl Slack. Also, also Thomas Bova. Thomas Bernard Bova.
We did him on April 4th.
Oh, we did?
Yes, we
Oh,
did.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Well, I just think
We can do it again.
he should be noted again. And of course, His wife, of course, is Chicky Vella. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's fine,
So
Madeline.
I have a dedication. On April 10th, we lost Barbara Cullen, the former executive director of the Wilmar Center, a place that's near and dear to my heart. I've volunteered there for many years, and my wife and I are guardian angels of Wilmar. She's left there a few years ago. But back when we lost the Maloney family years ago, she was right there in the different tragedies we had at Presswood School. She was always there to stand up, so I just wanted to acknowledge Barbara, otherwise known as B. So thank you.
That's great. I just wanted to say on John Slack, knew him for many years through both business and personal auto repair. He was one of the few individuals that could get my rather ancient car working. So I certainly am very glad to be involved in this meeting dedication. And Barbara Cullen, I would say for years with Wilmar, her indomitable spirit will just be missed. And as that group transitions and they're working with SAY and some of the other organizations that are going forward, I know that she is not far. So with that, we'll move on to presentations. And I believe, Kate, this is your deal. Kate Schertz is the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission Chair.
Please don't give me that other job. I like this one just fine.
But I just wanted to say thank you for your dedication, and you are in the right place with us in the city because of all your talents and your contributions to community. So thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. On the commission, which is your commission, of course, mayor and council members, you have generously given us the funds to have run a Artist Student of the Year award since 2002. Before that, it was another award that was ended, so the city took over the responsibility. And one of the greatest joys that we have all year long is this time when we run the competition for the Student Art Award. We advertise the award. It's for any student between the ages of 16 and 21 who lives here in the Valley, and they have to submit a portfolio of their work. And it has pushed some of us on the commission to learn how to use a flash drive and to learn how to send text messages so that we could communicate with the students who are submitting their portfolios. So they submit a portfolio, which we review, and then we meet with them one-on-one. For these students, for most of them, it's the first time they've ever had to undergo such a kind of one-on-one thing, and it's good dry run for the college interviews that they're going to have. The competition is always very stiff, and it's very difficult for us to choose just one person because it's apples and oranges. We're putting a musician against a music entrepreneur, against a art designer, against a jazz player, against a costume designer, which brings me to our award for tonight. At the end, there has to be just one Student Art Award, and we're delighted to present to you tonight this year's winner, Miss Kaylin Reedley, a costume and set designer. Kaylin has just recently been notified that she has been accepted into the highly competitive theater program at UCLA.
Oh, wow.
Kaylin has twice won the teen division of the Trash and Fashion Show, which all good Sonomans know about. And she has designed costumes and sets for numerous Sonoma Valley High School and Presentation School productions. And Kaylin and her friends would like to share a little runway show for you of just a few of her designs. Kaylin? Kaylin? You okay?
Hello, I'm Kaylin. Wait, can everyone hear me? Yes? Okay. Yes. I'm so grateful to have been given this honor of the Amazing Commission Award. I've brought 3 costumes that I've designed that are still intact. I designed most of them to fit me. So I have my sister and her friend and one of my really good friends, Rachel, wearing them. So they're a little bit off, but you'll get the point.
stand up here, and then you can turn around so everyone can see you.
So this was my 2014 Halloween costume from one of my favorite movies, Beetlejuice. So I made a female version of Beetlejuice. Most of it's made out of spray paint, honestly. And then I made the tie, and I tied up the wig myself. And yes. This was my 2015 Trash and Fashion dress. I wanted to do a tea party, but I also really like gardens, so I made a tea party garden dress. The dress is made from hula hoops and tulle, and the top is made from potted plant covers woven together, and all the little flowers are tea bag coverings. And the tiara is also tea bags woven with little spoons. Yeah. Oh, and the Trash and Fashion show, all outfits must be made out of completely recyclable materials. So, yeah.
Cute that is.
This was last year's Halloween costume from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is another one of my favorite movies. And I wanted to do something sparkly, and I think the sparkliest thing in that movie is Columbia. The jacket and the top, yeah, and the shorts and the shoes are all made from or thrift shop finds. And it's the first time I've ever worked with sequins. So, needless to say, my living room is covered in sequins.
Well, I think that you've probably seen the opening salvo of what's going to be an extremely successful career, and that you'll think back when you're watching the Oscars in 2036, and you'll say, I knew her when she was the City of Sonoma's treasure student. So please, on behalf of the City Council and the town of Sonoma, we present you with the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission's Creative Arts Award, and even more importantly, a nice fat check.
Congratulations. Oh, yes, by all means.
Should we go up there?
You should come up here. Come on up here. Right up there in the middle.
Okay.
Yes, you go right there. Okay, here we go.
We have mom, dad, grandma, grandpa,
Okay.
brothers and sisters all here tonight, so.
Now let's, and I'll shake your hand too. Congratulations. Okay.
Good friend is Chrissy Carbonatus. She's one of my best buddies.
We want to hear nothing but good reports from you. Now I'd like to go ahead and call Kimberly Blattner up to the podium.
Wish all meetings could be like that.
I know.
That's great.
What a doll.
So, Kimberly, it's my wonderful honor here, as well as my council members and Mayor Pro Tem, to present to you the Certificate of Appreciation for your work on Community Services and Environment Commission. You sort of doubled down and was chair of the tree committee as well. So you went through all of the positions within the commission itself, and you did it with such grace, consideration for the citizens of Sonoma. And I just want to say that your professionalism, your courtesy, your understanding is absolutely appreciated by all of us for your work on that commission. Thank you very much. Please say a few words.
I'd want to say thank you to all of my members on the CSCC, but particularly to the city staff. I want to give particular thanks to Wendy Atkins, who has really been phenomenal for the last, I've been on the commission for 7 years, and has been gracious, and sometimes we get some very, very complicated issues that come before our commission. For those of you that don't know, the CSCC approves every event that comes into the plaza. So it can be quite a contentious thing, particularly when people have not cleaned up the bathroom. And anyway, I've really enjoyed service, and I hope to come back in the future on another commission for the city. So thank you.
Thank you again, Kimberly. John Goring and Rob Sandville, will you come to the podium?
John is on a cruise.
Oh.
So I would like to go ahead and have this proclamation read in honor of the Children's Memorial Flag Day. Whereas throughout America, tragic cases of violence against children are occurring with increasing frequency and senselessness, destroying innocent lives and devastating families. And whereas Sonoma County has had violent preventable child deaths by guns, knives, automobiles, physical abuse, and suicide. And whereas the people of the city of Sonoma believe in the celebration of life, diversity, and hope for the future through our children, and deplore and condemn acts of violence committed upon the children of our community. And whereas the Board of MOVES, M-O-V-E-S, minimize occurrences of violence in everyday society, and the Sonoma County Human Services Department are committed to raising individual and public consciousness of the need to care for all our children and to honor young lives lost. And whereas the Sonoma County Regional Parks Foundation is building the Children's Memorial Grove at Spring Lake Park, dedicated to the memory of Sonoma County's children who have passed away. And whereas MOVES has acquired Children's Memorial Flag from the Child Welfare League of America, which has become a recognizable symbol of the need to do a better job of protecting children, which is sponsoring a national effort to memorialize child victims, and which has been adopted in other California communities. And whereas the Children's Memorial Flag will be flown at City Hall on April 29th, 2016, in remembrance of young lives cut short by senseless violence. Now, therefore, I, Lori Gallion, the mayor of the city of Sonoma, do hereby proclaim the fourth Friday of April 2016 Children's Memorial Flag Day in the city of Sonoma, and I urge all citizens to increase their participation in efforts to prevent child abuse and child death, and in support of Children's Memorial Grove, thereby strengthening the community in which we live. Thank you.
On behalf of MOVES, which is a very small nonprofit organization that believes in eliminating violence from our everyday life, thank you to the town of Sonoma and everyone here. So this is the flag. keeping this, or?
All right, finished with our presentations. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent calendar and agenda order for City Council. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for separate action. At this time, council may decide to change the order of the agenda. Council members? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and go out for public comment. Anyone wishing to comment or withdraw? Go ahead, bring it back to oh. I see someone approaching. Is it on the consent agenda? Yes.
Thank you for just a couple of minutes to say thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members and city staff. We are so grateful for all of your excellent work on item 4G, the City of Sonoma's Rent Stabilization Ordinance Revision. And I'm bringing my expression of gratitude from many people, including some of our leaders who are in their heavenly homes, Herb Golan-Paul and Teresa Montague and Bill Tate. Those of us still standing, Gary Hermes and his allies, Bonnie Joy Caslin and her board from Moon Valley, myself, and Colachitas and John Kyle. We just all want you to know how grateful we are for the successful completion of this rent stabilization ordinance project. And we also want to thank the broader community who have held us in their good thoughts and prayers, and we hope that our success will inspire further proactive solutions to the challenges of living in our beautiful Valley of the Moon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn Marie. All right, we're closing public comment and bringing back to council. I'm looking for a motion. Councilmember Cook?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar, item 4A through 4G.
I'll second that. Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go for the roll call vote.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And with that, we have approved the consent agenda. With that, I'd like to bring up Mary Seck, if she would come to the podium and introduce her as our new planning commissioner. Mary, you can just say a few words.
Hi, thank you. I'm honored to be chosen for the Planning Commission. Oh, sorry. I'm honored to be a part of the Planning Commission. I'm excited to be a part of an important role in the community of Sonoma. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, and if we go on to the consent calendar agenda order for City Council as successor agency. This is the approval of portion of the minutes of the March 21st and April 4th City Council meeting pertaining to the successor agency. Any questions here? Okay, let's move out to public. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. I'm looking for a motion from council members.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second from Councilmember Cook. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's call for the roll call vote.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And with that, we have unanimously passed the consent calendar agenda order. City Council as successor agency. We'll now be moving into public hearings, and that is item 6A on our agenda. The discussion, consideration, and possible action relating to refuge rate refuse rate adjustment with city franchise Sonoma Garbage Company, Inc. to be effective for billing period beginning April 1, 2016. And with that, our acting city manager, Gay Johan.
Yes. The city's franchise refuse hauler, Sonoma Garbage Company, Inc., has submitted a proposed rate increase for 2016. The proposal is based on the calculation of the Refuse Rate Index, RRI, to establish the increase in the base rate. No additional charges to the franchise agreement or services are being requested. This increase is in accordance with the franchise agreement to maintain a fair rate of return. The proposed rate adjustment to be effective for the billing period beginning April 1, 2016 is requested as follows. It's for the residential, commercial, and debris box rates. They're proposing a 1.51% adjustment. And with that, Mr. Wells is here, so if you have any questions, I would defer to him for responses.
Okay, that's great. Council members, do we have any questions? All right, let's go ahead and move to public comment on this particular item. Opening the public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to step forward?
Rosemary Pedronzini, 437 2nd Street West. I think you should approve this rate. We've lived in our house 57 years, and Corrados were great. John Corrado Sr. used to come down our driveway, pick up the cans on his back like they used to do in San Francisco. They called them scavengers. And it was Thanksgiving the day before, and I'm making pumpkin pies, and he goes, "Rosemary, what smells so good?" I go, "I'm making pumpkin pies." And John and his wife are angels. And I think you should approve this, and I don't care what anybody else says. You go to the dumps with our pickup, which we don't do anymore. You pull over the scale, and you're getting umpteen bills. We got to prove it. People got to use the garbage. And I'm sick of going to Petaluma, Santa Rosa, mainly Petaluma, and on the road, on the highway, you see all the people that dump garbages. Watmore Road, they put out, by Yamakara and Rosser, they put out their chairs. They just dump everywhere because they can't afford to go to the dumps. So me and my mouth, you know, Benny said, stay home and be quiet. Well, you know, I'm not going to do that. You people know me, right, Gary? So for John Corrado and his family, I'm just saying, my time's almost up, approve the increase. Thank you.
Okay. Again, it's just a show of hands, not an applaud, regardless of what the avenue might be or your appreciation. So thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this issue? Seeing no one, then I will go ahead and I will bring it back to council, close the public hearing. Council member comments, questions? Okay.
Thank you. I sit on the Sonoma County Waste Management Agency, and I've been on since I was elected. And, oh, pardon me, ma'am. Pardon me. And being on that committee, that board is quite an adventure, and it's very political. I don't know how garbage became like that. No, I do understand there's so much money involved. But one thing I'd like to say is we are so lucky here in Sonoma and Sonoma Valley because of Mr. Corrado and because there's a proposed compost facility that he's working on. And that's one of the biggest issues here in this county. And quite often I say, you know, it's unfortunate we're at the end of the pipe because we don't seem to get things that other cities do, but this certainly is a plus. So I'm just really excited that this is in our future because it's a real positive thing, and then we can get out of the politics of composting. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to state a comment? All
I'll make a comment.
Yes.
I would just like
Councilmember
to say
Edwards.
that what I've seen with the Corrado service in my last 25 years here is outstanding, and I love having a local hauler versus a regional hauler in our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Cook?
Well, I also like the fact that Sonoma, we don't have a lot of things that are just Sonoma. We even share our police department with the sheriff's department through the JPA. So I love having our own garbage service. So I would like to make a motion tonight on item 6A to approve.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Cook. We have a second from Councilmember Edwards. Any further discussion? At this point, I'd like to go ahead and chime in with my 2 cents and just say that I have definitely been dealing with the Corrados for the better part of 34 years. I've always found them to be fair. I have found their rates to be reasonable, certainly when compared with other parts of the county. I remember thinking when I was first a council member, coming together, approving many contracts, many rate increases, what is this all about? And following this issue, this has not been an easy path to navigate. And certainly with innovations as they have been, we have seen that this partnership is in league with the city of Sonoma. How many times have we gone to Mr. Corrado and asked him, we have a certain issue, is there something that he could come up with or something that he might develop? It is an incredibly rich relationship that we have with the Corrado family, and I, for one, am very fortunate that we have been in partnership for so many years. So it's my turn to pay back and say thank you for all you have done for the city. And with that, I think we can go for a roll call vote.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And with that, it's a unanimous passing of our resolution of the City Council of the City of Sonoma approving the refuse rate adjustments. All right. And with that, we will go ahead and move on to our next item, which is the discussion, consideration, and possible action of the introduction of an ordinance amending development code by implementing housing element measures and clarifying provisions related to the mixed-use zone and planned development permits, and the finding that the action is categorically exempt from environmental review. And this is none other than our planning director, David Goodison.
Thank you, Mayor Gallion, members of the City Council. The Planning Commission has developed a set of draft amendments to the Development Code that are now before the City Council for consideration. These amendments address 4 areas. First, a prohibition on the use of second units as vacation rentals would be established. This is consistent with implementation measures in the housing element. Second, the description of the mixed-use zone would be amended to make it clear that 100% residential development is an allowable use that one may apply for. Third, the provisions of the planned development permit section would be clarified to affirm that the planned development permit is an allowed option in the mixed-use zone. And lastly, there would be an increase in the required term of affordability for inclusionary density bonus and city-funded affordable units to 55 years. The Planning Commission looked at these code amendments on 2 occasions, holding a preliminary review on February 11th. In their second review, which occurred on March 10th, the Commission voted 6-1 to forward the ordinance to the City Council with a recommendation for adoption. And that concludes staff's report. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions of staff?
I do have.
Mayor Pro Tem
Yeah,
Agramonte?
thank you. If I understand this correctly, there's a portion in this that deals with the EIR, is that correct? Or it's not necessary for an EIR? Am I
Well,
on the
one of the
wrong path?
elements of the ordinance which occurs in section 5 is the finding that the passage of this ordinance is exempt from environmental review. And that finding is based on the fact that none of these changes have any implications with respect to changes to the environment.
So is that tied to any legislation, David? Is it tied to any?
Well, it's tied to
I think there's something.
state law with respect to the California Environmental Quality Act. The council has to make some finding with respect to whether or not environmental review is required for the passage of an ordinance, especially an ordinance amending the development code.
All right.
Yes, Councilmember Hundley.
So as a clarification, that declaration is just for this amendment, but each project as it comes forward would still have to have its own requirements as far as EIRs and that sort of thing goes.
That is absolutely
So
correct.
This isn't affecting any project. This is just right now.
That's exactly right.
All right. I have another question about the timing of this amendment, since a month from now we're going to have a meeting with the Planning Commission to talk about potentially other amendments or ideas there. So how does that relate to what we're doing now versus what we might be doing later, and why is this coming up right now?
Well, this is coming up right now because for a couple of reasons. First, that differ by some of the different sections. So to begin with, the item pertaining to second units, that is there to implement implementation measures that are in the housing element. The housing element was adopted by the Planning Commission and the City Council last March. So we're following up on those programs. Items 2 and 3 relate to discussions that the Planning Commission has been having about those different sections of the Development Code and how they should be interpreted. And the amendments with respect to item 2 and 3 are, from staff's perspective, both status quo amendments. They don't change, in staff's view, the rules from how they have been traditionally interpreted over the years. And second, both of those amendments, in staff's view, promote opportunities or allowances for housing diversity and affordable housing. And with respect to item number 4, that is kind of a cleanup because under state law, density bonus units do need to have an affordable term of 55 years. The term of 55 years was also common to inclusionary units previously because that was a requirement of any affordable unit developed in the redevelopment area. But with redevelopment ending, that no longer applies. So we're just trying to be consistent with how we apply the term of affordability to all affordable units. And lastly, I guess I would just say that I don't think any of these amendments interfere with or preclude the council and the Planning Commission from other options that might come up in the course of your study session.
Okay. Councilmember Edwards.
So David, I have a question, maybe just for clarification for the public, et cetera. So the potential amending the Sonoma Truck and Auto to all residential, would that be a good example of what we're talking about here?
Yes, the Sonoma Truck and Auto site is zone mixed use. In any mixed use zone, it has been possible in the past to apply for 100% residential development. And that's something that the Planning Commission has considered and on occasion approved in the past. This amendment just makes it clear that that really is possible in the development code because a question had been raised about it.
Okay. And then as far as any other issues, any projects that are under development at this time, this doesn't affect projects that have been previously approved in our
No,
for
it does
example.
not. And I would also add that this doesn't require 100% affordable development in the mixed use zone either. So.
Great, thank you.
I do have a question if everyone else is finished. Okay.
So to clarify, as the development code is right now, 100% residential developments are already allowed on mixed use. This is just clarifying it for everybody?
Yes, they have been allowed in the mixed use zone in the past, and this makes it clear that that is an option.
Okay. All right. So, David, I just want to be clear that, you know, we're projected to go ahead and finish this as part of the housing element. We will have this folded in here. Will this also be part of the framework that we would be discussing in the future for the new general plan 2020? By
Well-
that, I mean, I'm trying to say this is something that would be in effect and would then be considered again in our general plan. Is
Yes,
that correct?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, and with that, if there's no further questions of staff, let's go ahead and put this out to the public. All those wishing to make a comment, please advance now. Open for public comment. This is a public hearing. Speak now. Seeing no one speaking on this issue, I will go ahead and bring it back to council. And with that, council, I'm looking for further discussion or motion. Council members?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the housing update.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. City Attorney, is that clear enough in a definition?
I was just going to say that's to introduce the ordinance.
Introduce ordinance, sorry.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to amend, and we have a second on that
Yes.
amendment. Okay, so we're introducing the ordinance itself. All right. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, then I would ask for a roll call vote.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So with that, we have a 5-0 consensus that we are going to be introducing this ordinance, amending the development code by implementing housing element measures and clarifying provisions related to the mixed-use zone and plan development permits. All right, with that, we will go ahead and we will move on to our regular calendar agenda. Item 7A, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve construction of a monument to Sonoma's founder, General Vallejo, in the Sonoma Plaza, authorizing the city manager to execute a maintenance agreement with the General Vallejo Monument Committee. And we have Dan Tagatsuki here from Public Works, who will be going ahead and introducing the item.
Thank you, Mayor Gallion and council members. The issue before you tonight is the final approval of the General Vallejo Monument. This came before you about 6 months ago as a conceptual approval, which the council did approve. And since that time, it's gone before the CSEC, the Cultural Fine Arts Commission, and the Facilities Committee for approval, which it did receive. Those committees looked at such things as the placement, the materials, and the maintenance for the facility. So what we're looking for tonight from the council is the final approval for this monument in the plaza. And I'd like to defer to Robert Demler of the committee to give a short brief on the details of the monument.
Thank you very much, Dan. Mr. Demler.
Good evening, Mayor Galligan and City Council members. I'm Robert Demler, 649 First Street West, Sonoma. This project has been in the public eye for about 11 months. I went back to the files today, and the first press release was May 18th, 2015. We went to the City Council the first time on September 9th, 2015. So we have been going through all of those bureaucratic hoops ever since, and I think we survived so far. Now tonight, up on the screen, you see a diagram of the placement of the proposed statue of General Vallejo. It is to be on the north axis of the City Hall, next to the sidewalk, on a base of Napa basalt stone. The base, the floor of the platform will be stone, as will the bench construction around it. It's a half octagon with an opening in the south side, or at the top in this diagram, with a general statue in the center. There will be 3 plaques, 2 subordinate smaller ones in the back, on either side of the opening to honor the donors and the committee, and the larger plaque to describe the life of General Vallejo will be on a medium-sized bolter at the bottom by the sidewalk on the right side, looking at the diagram. The statue will be life-size, made of bronze, as will the bench. We have a model tonight.
Right. We need a microphone if you're going to speak from there. There we go.
I turned it around to the public so the public can see. The statue will be life-size. The general was about 6 feet. And the bench will also be bronze. I'd like to say also that we've had a wonderful committee. And with your permission, Mayor, would you please ask the committee to just stand? I won't go.
The committee may stand.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We also have the sculptor here, Jim Callahan. The site architect, Michael Ross, is out of the state. Now, I'm the chairperson, and I always say I'm the chairperson by default, because dear Sheila Cole, whose son Michael, Israel, is here tonight, was our founding member. This was Sheila's idea, which I think is brilliant. And she asked me later on to be her co-chair, and now with her passing on January 1st, I'm the chair. We also had another member to pass 2 weeks before Sheila. That was Betty Allen. So these are the members of the committee, and this is our process. This has been our process. Sheila wrote back in the first press release to rectify the absence of a suitable tribute. And it was referring to the general. The committee has contacted a local well-known artist who will make the statue. This is Jim Callahan, a former treasurer of Sonoma treasurer. And there's a site in mind where both local citizens and visiting tourists can view the statue. The city's working with the committee, and further announcements will be made. So this is the process we've gone through for 11 months. We feel it would be a great enhancement to the plaza and to the city, and we feel and it will be a great opportunity for the students who come through on their school tours and the tourists who come through, and for our local residents to have a meeting place and an opportunity for a photo op. So I can imagine, like in New York at the Central Station, Grand Central Station, you meet under the clock. Well, we'll meet at the Vallejo bench. Mm-hmm. Or the general's bench, or whatever, in Sonoma. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Demler. Is there any council questions? Okay. At this point, anyone else wishing to speak? Please step forward.
Hello, my name's Tom Hauser. I live at 484 East Napa Street. And I want to say I don't want people to think I'm negative about the plan. What I'm negative about is the lack, or the proposal. I'm negative about the lack of a park plan, a plaza park plan that says we want some additional monuments in the plaza. We want this criteria used to apply whether we should have a monument or we shouldn't have a monument, and then once we decide one is appropriate, to say yes, we should go ahead. Many years ago, I was a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission, which no longer exists, but the function is still followed through with. We got a whole lot of applications from family members of a deceased person who wanted to plant memorial trees in the plaza. And all of a sudden, we've got trees popping up all over the place, and then we realized we really didn't have any room for any more. And that's when we decided we need to actually have a plan. And we did create a plan at the time, and that's a plan, I believe, that's still in effect, which essentially is if something dies, we replace it with a similar tree unless there's some real good reason for it. One of the things I've learned over my years here is that the city of Sonoma really believes in planning, thinking things ahead of time. And it's nice that this committee came forward. I have nothing to say against them. I have nothing to say against Mr. Callahan. I think he's a good artist. But the city should be saying, this is what we want, not that, well, okay, this sounds like something nice. Let's accept this ad hoc proposal without any particular thing ahead of time that we, as a city, the citizens, and you as the city council, say, yes, this is the kind of thing we want to have in the plaza. This is where we want to have something. Now, it may turn out, if we go through this process, that this is exactly what people want. I don't know. Certainly, I'm not an art critic. I know at the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission hearing, which was not a unanimous approval, there were 4 votes for it, 3 against. One of the commissioners expressed concern about what she described as the form of the piece of art. And I didn't quite understand that until she felt it was disrespectful. And apparently this particular thing, a bench with somebody with their arm out, is a very common piece of sculpture that's all over. I have been told that Ronald McDonald does this also, but I don't know. Maybe that's what we want.
Mr. Hauser, I need you to sum up.
I know, it says right there. Thank you. So, I mean, my concern is that we need to have a plan, and we should do that first. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a wonderful timer.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this particular item? I'm going to close unless someone steps up. All right. I'm closing this item and bringing it back to council. Councilmember Cook?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. I'm a member of the Facilities Committee along with Councilmember Edwards, and we actually did look through this. And I want to thank city staff for whenever you look at a monument or anything that's going to be in the plaza, you look at maintenance fees and how that's going to end up in 50, 60, 70 years. Being able to talk to the artist and knowing how long this is going to last. But I will say one thing about our speaker, which is true. Even though I'm going to support this tonight, I do believe one of the past councils before I was on the council, when I used to be out in the nosebleed seats, they were talking about a brochure, kind of trying to allow citizens, like if they wanted to buy a bench on Montini for somebody who's passed away. And it's something I think the city council probably should look at again. It never passed. But I'm going down memory lane, so it's been about 5 years. But it would be good to have a plan, and not that I think that this is a bad plan, because I totally support this. I think this is great. It's going to be wonderful. But I think this might be a time that we could look as a council and try to figure out, now that we have Montini there, because I know when I was mayor, State Parks, a member of Jack London, had asked to bring one of the Jack London trees to the plaza, and I love the idea, but when you talk to Public Works and when you talk to other city staff and just constituents, you kind of find out that the plaza's full. If we planted one more tree, that would probably be one too many, unless one passes on. But bringing it back to where we could take it to the Overlook, we could take it to Montini. We have, I think, 12, 13 parks around the city. So I would like to, at some point, look at that legislation of trying to go for that way. But I just wanted to mention to my colleagues that this is a well-vetted program, and I will be supporting this tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Hundley, and then Edwards.
The public comments are, I think, good points, duly noted. I think one of the nice things about being in a small city is that these requests are so few and far between that we can have our commission and city council process to consider them. And this one actually does fit in with something that we have planned, which is one of our our goals, which is to preserve, promote, and celebrate the unique characteristics of Sonoma, encourage the incorporation of our history into city, community, and business identities. So having this right in front of City Hall certainly is bringing history into our visible city identity. So I support it for that, and I think it's done in a very tasteful way, and everyone that I know that's seen it is excited about it. So I liked the project before, and I will be supporting it today, and I appreciate the committee that put this together, and especially since they said we didn't have to pay for it. So thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Edwards.
I'll go with all due respect to Tom and Nancy and Bob Parmalee, who wrote this letter that we have here. The idea of having General Vallejo, he gave us this plaza, which is so important to me. And when this started circulating with Mr. Demler and other folks, I talk to people all the time about, is this something that you would like to have? And I haven't run into anybody that has said they don't want to have something like this. And I think it's such a significant thing that, this was northern Mexico at one time, and and General Vallejo gave us the plaza, and I think it's a beautiful monument. And and with respect to Mr. Hauser, with Ronald McDonald may have his arm out, but Ig Vela and Bob Kennard did as well. And that's how I look at this. And I know Jim Callahan, and I've seen his work over the years, and I think it's great. I look at it in this photo, and General Vallejo is looking towards his home. That's what I see. I don't know if that's the design, but I like it, and I look forward to. Originally, the plaza was built, the building, to be the same on all four sides, and I think this is a great improvement to the backside of City Hall. So I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, I plan to support this as well, and I think it falls in line with possibly those plans of a promenade of some kind coming from across the street of this statue. And I just think it's a wonderful opportunity, besides the plaque, to actually have something that's dedicated to General Vallejo. And I think that's really an important thing for us to recognize that history, and I'm just really proud to be part of that.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion, and then I will give my comments under discussion.
And I'll make that motion to approve construction of a monument to Sonoma's founder, General Vallejo, in the Sonoma Plaza, and authorizing the city manager to execute a maintenance agreement and artist contract with the General Vallejo Monument Committee.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, further discussion. All right, so at this point, I found sometimes this is easier to weigh in at this point, since I'm usually the last to speak, but I just wanted to say that this is such a legacy statement, and for me, although I was born of the Community Services and Environment Commission, and as guardians of the plaza, it was really all about the people. It was about the people who lived here and having a space that was not dominated by names of people who wanted to be honored by tree plantings or anything like that. And I understood that the plaza for me, what I held near and dear to me and what was so meaningful was that this was a place where it was for the people. Whether you were a tourist, whether you lived here, whether you were a single mom, and this was your opportunity to go play on the swings, so wonderfully reconditioned by Rotary, it's a community statement. And to me, this is absolutely what needs to be there as part of a community statement. Now, as far as, who's designing this, the brainchild, all of this, the parties that are putting it together, they are to be lauded for the fact that the city itself, with sometimes very challenging resources, are not able to do this. And they have gone through all of the hoops that we have put you through in all the different commissions, representing a dearth of volunteers here who represent the citizens for the city of Sonoma. And on all of that, you have gotten the pass-through. We have one of the most gifted sculptors here, Jim Callahan, who I know personally, and his integrity is never to be disputed, and his heart is always in the city of Sonoma. And he has always been giving back to community. I can't imagine, with the credible team that is put together with this statue, that we will not walk hand in hand through this particular process to make sure that it is the best of our community that is represented here. To Mr. Hauser and Mr. Parmalee, I agree with your conversation. I agree that maybe there is a plan, and maybe this is something that we would look for the future, because we have such a beautiful, precious gem in the plaza that we do need to safeguard this. It's not that I'm discounting anything that you're saying in this particular process, but I thank you for the opportunity of raising that awareness of how this might be something that is developed in the future. So with our guardians of the plaza, maybe this is something that might be taken on as a future project. And with that, I would like to call for the vote. Roll call, please.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And with that, we have the approval of the construction of a monument to General Vallejo in the Sonoma Plaza, and authorizing the city manager to execute a maintenance agreement and artist contract with the General Vallejo Monument Committee. Congratulations. I know you can't applaud, you can wave hands. All right, there we go. Thank you very much. All right, and with that, if council is in agreement, we'll move on to item 7C. And we'll give you a moment to go ahead and collect. Oh, we're at 7B. Thank you very much. So 7B is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding an appeal of the Community Services and Environment Commission decision related to the plaza use fees for the 2016 Tuesday night farmers market. And our acting city manager, Gay Johan, will go ahead and start off this item.
Yes, Mayor. In 2010, for the second time in as many years, the city issued a request for proposals for operation of the Tuesday night farmers market. At that time, 2 proposals were received, and on December 15, 2010, the City Council awarded the permit to operate the market to Valley of the Moon Certified Farmers Market. Their permit has since been extended by the council twice for additional 2-year periods, with the current period culminating in 2016. The fees for special events are established and adopted by the City Council. However, at some time in the past, an exception was made for the farmers market in the city's special event policy, which allows the Community Services and Environment Commission to annually establish an appropriate rental fee for the farmers market as part of its annual review of the Farmers Market Plaza use application. The farmers market season runs from the beginning of May through the end of October and is held every Tuesday, equating to 26 weekly events. At their March 9th, 2016 meeting, the CSEC, in reviewing the plaza use application, voted to approve the application and to charge the Valley of the Moon Certified Farmers Market a total of $1,964 for the 2016 market season, subject to certain conditions. That amount included an application fee, an alcohol permit fee, and $750 rental fee. There were no maintenance fees or security deposit required. The conditions under which this reduction in fees was based on included that the Valley of the Moon Certified Farmers Market would provide $2,500 towards the electronic benefit transfer program and would waive rental fees for farmers selling produce. Councilmember Edwards has filed an appeal against that decision. That's my report.
Thank you very much. So at this point, since this is an appeal, we would go ahead and call for council questions to staff about the project. and then we will open a public hearing, and we will hear from Gary, and then we will also hear from Chris Petlock and Chris Welsh. But at this time, this is council's questions to staff about the project. Yes, Councilmember Hundley.
I don't know who might be able to answer this, but back in 2010, the original proposal, can anybody tell me about what that was like, or what the terms were, or how much, and what their goals were? Anything about it?
I don't have that document with me, but basically in their proposal, they laid out pretty much what we have right now. They laid out, you know, their events, and the fee, it looks like was, boy, I don't have that down, I'm sorry. I can tell you in 2011, the fee for farmers market was $175 a week plus the cost of trash removal.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? All right. Okay, so at this point, I will go ahead and open for a public hearing, and then we would go ahead and hear Gary Edwards, Councilmember Edwards, for 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes. And then we would go ahead and hear Chris Petlock, up to 10 minutes. And then 5 minutes for Chris Welsh. And if that's in accordance with all the council members as procedure, then I'm willing to move forward with that. Okay? Accepted. So we will now open this up at this time. Mr. Edwards.
I don't think I'll need 10 minutes. So I appealed this this decision by the CSEC, actually on a couple of things. My background is farming, like former Mayor Cook, and what I do for a living is I support farmers around the country, Europe, Wisconsin, California, in quite a few places, and it's my background, it's my passion. One of the reason why I brought this up is at this council we had a majority vote to deny plaza use for Nuestra Voz for Mexican Independence Day. They needed to waive their fees because it happened on a Sunday, and it was something that it's a very minor, small event, and they're not a very well orchestrated event from the marketing perspective. It's not necessarily a tourist event. And they came before the council and they were denied, which I thought the numbers were $1,900 at the time, but they actually were charged $2,440 for their one-day event on a Sunday. And I personally, after the council denied their request, I personally wrote them a check for $500 because that's what I happen to have in my city council. We get a $350 stipend, and I give 100% of my city council paycheck, so to speak, to nonprofits. So I was very disappointed in that, and you know, I've had I don't know if you have that photo, David, that I sent you earlier. I've had a couple of issues. I had a lot of questions the last time we approved. I think there was a request for a 5-year extension, and the council agreed to a 2-year extension a while back. And my issue is that we charge all of our nonprofits that give 100% of their time and effort and money back to the citizens of Sonoma, and here we are taking this fee, which I think is very small. Considering the amount of dollars that pass through the market, and in the terms of the people who run the market, in our conversations and our questions last time, we asked how many people come through the market, and the estimate was between 1,500 and 1,700 people per week. My concerns are with that is about the amount of use the plaza is getting. This picture was taken this morning of the plaza, and the plaza is in absolutely pristine condition at this moment. And this was about, I think, 9:30 or so this morning. But I often go in and meet with the city clerk, and I look right, she has the best view in town looking out that window. And last year, we've been in a drought situation for many years. The last couple of years, it's just been, you look out and you see the wear and tear on the plaza. Along the western side of it, you see just brown spots and dips, and where the music ends up, the dance floor becomes this trench of matted area. And I feel that we're not collecting enough revenue from the market to sustain what we're doing to the plaza. And what really actually put me over the top was when the CSEC came back and said that we're not paying attention to the public restrooms. And when we're running 40 to 60,000 people through during a market season, those facilities are being overused, and my assessment is that the plaza is being overused for what we're getting in return for it. And that's my main issue. And then when I look at, I was away last week, and Mr. Walsh ran an article. So I actually haven't spoken with anybody about this until the last 2 days. I've been inundated with phone calls about support and other nonprofits calling and saying, well, gee, we get charged this and we get charged that. And none of these were solicited by me, so I know people are reading the newspaper. But my biggest issue is that I don't believe the fees are enough. The reduction in fees, Mr. Allenbach sent a note about the opportunity for assistance for the federal program for inexpensive produce and so on. But I serve on the board of the Redwood Empire Food Bank, and we served about 780,000 meals in Sonoma Valley last year. And I know those services are coming here, and I just don't believe that the farmers that are left in the market, I can't believe that their sales are growing, because I just don't see it. I know that I'm not coming to the market. I have 2 small children, and it's so difficult to even walk into the plaza. We live close enough where we can walk from our house, so we don't worry about parking, but I know parking's a real issue. On the other side of that, this council has been, we finally started the discussion on affordable housing, and when I talk to servers around the plaza, and being in the food business, and I sell to some of the restaurants on the plaza, when I talk to the servers, because my wife and I and my family, we go to restaurants as often as we can. But when I talk to the servers, they say, well, gee, I say, how much are you losing on a typical Tuesday night? And a lot of them average between $100 and $150 in tips that they lose on Tuesday nights. The restaurants are quiet, and there's no doubt about that. But what that also does is the fact that we have a lot of out-of-town, for lack of a better word, fast food vendors that are coming to provide meals. I believe the Tuesday market has just turned into an event that happens every single week. I also work with lots of wineries around the Napa, Sonoma, and around the state, actually. And the Tuesday market just reminds me of a special event. And serving on the Planning Commission for all those years, City County Planning Commission, SBCAC, et cetera, our goal was to try to manage events. And I believe that in the words of the market managers, that it's over 70% non-farmers, and I think it's time to take a step and look at what we're doing. But I took this photo this morning, and I know it's going to change in 3 weeks. It's going to be a different photo, and regardless of what the council does tonight, I'd like to hear from the public their opinions. But this plaza, we have to protect it. I mean, it's what we have to do. We just okayed a General Vallejo statue, and he saw this type of plaza and this look all those years ago, and I want to protect it. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Edwards. Okay, at this point, I believe next up at the podium would be our chair, Chris. Are you chair, Chris, at this point? Okay, Community Services and Environment Commission.
Thank you so much. Mr. Edwards, I'd like to start with saying, in general, I agree with all of your comments. I think just how to approach the problem, or how to solve a lot of those issues that you mentioned, I don't think our commission has the tools to do that, and maybe you folks will be able to come back to that.
Chris, if you could just speak up a little bit. We have
Sure,
someone from
sure,
the
absolutely.
audience that needs to hear you.
Okay. First I'd like to say, initially when I saw this appeal, I thought, great, you guys will look at all of the information and make the best decision. And generally, I trust in the processes we have here. But then just on second thought, I remembered that we don't really have the minutes available for you to review all of the debate, all of the discussion, and so on. So I just wanted to make sure that I came here and maybe just impress some of the finer points of what the CSCC went through to come to the decision that we made for these market fees. Then, in reading this packet, I also was reading the actual statement that went out to the market members, and I didn't really feel like that actually captured what was said, or really the intent of what we wanted when we set those fees. So I'm just going to read some of the findings real quickly. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But the CSCC set up a subcommittee, and these are just some of the findings that we came across in the, I guess, about 3 months that we really looked at this before setting the fees.
Chris, would you name who was on the subcommittee?
Yeah, Fred Albeck, Ken Brown, myself.
Thank you.
Here's some of the findings. The market appears to be a successful community event and farmers market. The market believes the same. The public perception exists that the Tuesday market has become more of a festival and city party than an actual farmers market. The market board has complied with all city requests and requirements. The market board has made every effort to be transparent in its processes. The market board has made many attempts to solicit input from the farmers. The market board has invited farmers to sit on the board. The market board and CSCC have been made aware, as described in writing from farmers, that there is some discontent among farmers concerning how the market is managed. And there are written complaints from farmers. The farmers' sales are not at a level that is acceptable or sustainable. Some of the farmers are really considering walking away from this market, which led to some of the reasons why we wanted to direct additional subsidies to the farmers to encourage them to stay. When we walked into this, when we got through to this process, the market board had already set up its contracts for the years, really kind of set its budget, and we felt by digging into that or pulling away their subsidy too much that, again, the farmers might walk away, or this event itself might not be successful. Again, that's something that I think the CSCC commissioners didn't feel was appropriate to sabotage or undermine the market so close to being started. So really, we just decided to do what we did before. This is what was there in their budget, but we wanted to go further, not wait till next year, but identify some items that we felt might help directly support the farmers. Not giving the farmers market board additional money to play with, but for every dollar they spend on advertising or any of these other things that mentioned, we would subsidize that fee for that dollar. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. And if there's any questions, we'll just call Chris back. All right, and now I believe Chris Welsh, and your position on the farmers market?
I'm the manager of the market.
Thank you.
And I also would like to say that I understand a lot of what Councilmember Edwards is saying. At times it can be challenging, but mostly the Valley of the Moon Certified Farmers Market considers itself a partner with the city. And it's been a solid, mutually beneficial relationship that has a lot of respect. And our relationship is unique to our event. We're the only plaza user that puts on an event that is the result of an RFP. In other words, a solicitation from the city to put on this event, okay? That was 5 years ago, as the assistant city manager said. I do have a copy of the RFP, and I will answer your question in a minute, Rachel, about what it says. As the relationship has evolved, the success of it comes with the working relationship really between the CSEC and the market. We listen to them, we respond to them, and together we work to improve the market and tackle any challenges and solve any issues that we might have. That's an ongoing process. Recently, in preparation for the 2016 season, the CSEC asked us to take some actions that were aligned with the food action plan, which has been discussed. And we're happy to take on new projects. We want to make the market better, particularly for the farmers, because we're always saying we're a farmer's market. But we didn't have the budget to do that. And so in that back and forth with the CSEC, the solution was for them to offer to pay for us through the subsidy to do some things to implement so that we could implement and oversee those programs. Just in context, we're a small nonprofit organization. It's the only thing we do is put on the farmers market. For 6 months of a highly attended weekly event, our annual budget is $75,000, which is a pretty amazing bargain when you think about it. So to put it in a little context, that $10K subsidy that we currently get for the rent, which is, you might have seen in your documents, if we were charged the full rent like anybody else, it would be about $14,000, and in the past it's been about $4,000 for the 5 years that VOM CFM has managed the market. That's 15% of our annual budget, that $10,000, so it is not small. So obviously, if you're running such an event on such a small budget, it means that myself, the board members, the other staff, it's really a labor of love. And likewise, I would say the CSEC, which is a volunteer board of community members, and the amount of time they put into this, it's also a labor of love for them too. And why does everybody work so hard on this event? Maybe I can read you a description of the event from the actual request for proposal. Okay, this was the city putting this out. A Tuesday night certified farmers market has taken place in the city's historic 8-acre plaza in the heart of downtown for the past 20 plus years. The market has grown in size and scope and has become one of the trademark summer events for the city. The city and the community at large have a stake in the market continuing as a signature event for the Sonoma Valley. The market is not only a hub for residents who wish to purchase fresh, locally grown produce, but it's also a social gathering place for all ages, a popular picnic destination, and culturally important to the city. As such, the goal of this RFP and selection process is to continue and enhance Tuesday night certified farmers market in the plaza and to integrate the community values into the process of market management and operations. Okay, so this is part of the charter that brought VOM CFM to oversee the market. Okay, while we respect your right to appeal the CSC decision to partner with us to further enhance how the market can benefit our community, I would offer my opinion that many of the comments and criticisms expressed in the letter that you put out would put you out of step with the vast majority of Sonoma citizens who love and cherish this weekly event. And as an alternative to those views, I would like to suggest that the CSEC and the VOM CFM are on the right track in trying to combine the efforts of the city and market management to continue to improve the market, creatively resolve the challenges of such a large and successful weekly event, and to keep giving our citizens and visitors an exemplary market experience that keeps them talking about what an extraordinary and unique town Sonoma is, and it keeps them coming back week after week. As far as the issue of overuse of the plaza, it appears that the Tuesday night market is a great use of the plaza, and that General Vallejo not only wanted a beautiful plaza, but he probably wanted a gathering place for the community. And there is no better gathering that happens every week than the farmers market. It's not a museum, but it is a gathering place, and it's the very heart of what Sonoma is about. And we're happy to work with the CSEC and the council to continue to ensure that the plaza is well cared for. And that's my time. If I could just, though, address the one answer to you about the rent issue. Would you like to know that? Would that be all right?
I think at this point that would be appropriate.
Okay. It is here on page 5 of the request for proposal, and it says financial sustainability and fees. There's a lot of things, rules and regulations. There's a lot of things in here about the proposal, and it says fees for plaza use for the weekly farmers market are as follows. Shavoya Horseshoe, $100 a week. North parking lot, $75 a week. For additional space, charges will be determined in accordance with the city fee schedule. That's in there. It doesn't say it has a time limit. It doesn't say, and I believe that the CSCC and ourselves and the city itself has gone forward with that agreement, which we have been functioning under since we took on the market. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer, Chris. All right, and since we now, at this point that we've answered that one question for Councilmember Hundley, we have members of the public on either side. You have up to 3 minutes to give comments, so please go ahead and step forward now.
My name's Maria Toymill. I'm with Valley of the Moon Vintage Festival. I brought my sign here, nonprofits pay full price. This is the amount that we paid to the city last year for the use of the plaza for 2 days, $12,496.75. I have my notes on my phone here, so pardon me. Okay, so all we're asking for, and I think many of us here that came with me, is equality. We're asking that you call yourself a nonprofit, we're a nonprofit, we pay all the fees, we have to additionally pay fees for the upkeep, fees for more than just the rental of the selections of the grounds. In addition, when we do pay the fees and we make money, we give that money back to the community. And most of the 501c3s that we give our money to have to do with the youth of this community. So it goes back to the youth, and those youth are actually helping us with the Vintage Festival because we are all volunteers. None of us at the Vintage Festival that provide our services make a penny. We don't make anything. We work diligently, weekends, holidays, you know, all year long to put this together. And I know that, you know, this RFP that was suggested that the city gave the farmers market, perhaps the Vintage Festival should ask for an RFP because, you know, this is something that we put on for the city. We put on this for the community. We don't do this for our own benefit. We do it for the city to keep this historic event going. And we think that equality should be there. I'm going to jump around a little bit. The sacred grass. We asked to use the sacred grass one year, and it was like, oh, no, you can't use the sacred grass in the horseshoe. You might damage it. I went there one time after a farmer's market. I found batteries and garbage and junk and holes and mashed grass, and I could not believe that our city was allowing this to happen, but yet we couldn't put a couple of tables there for people to picnic at the Vintage Festival. I also asked for a waiver last year, and I had to sit here until it was probably about 9 o'clock. The council gave out $166,000 to the Tier 1 people, groups at that time, which is now a grant system, which as a nonprofit, the farmers market could ask for a grant. I was denied $3,600 after $166,000 was given out. And a month prior to that, another festival that went on here in town was given a reduction, a waiver of fees of more than $2,000, and they're a for-profit organization. So I just don't get, you know, why it's okay for some and not for others, and, you know, where that's coming from. One other thing I'd like to point out, and this is a little bit...
You're out of time.
Okay. I just want to make one more point. When I went to a CSEC meeting to have some things approved, I was approached at the meeting by Fred Albeck, and he said to me as I was asking to have something approved that if I reduced the tickets to the gala and put them in one of the local stores so that he could afford to go to the venue, that he would change his vote, and he was the deciding factor on that vote that night. And I was denied.
Thank you
It
very
was
much
a
for that
quid
comment.
pro quo situation.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak on this issue?
Bill Montini, 18950 Fifth Street West. I'm here this evening to represent the Native Sons of the Golden West. We're a nonprofit. We were established in Sonoma in 1887. We're the ones that are responsible for the Bear Flag Monument in the plaza. We were the first ones to put a lawn in the plaza, and we maintained it for several years at no cost to the city. We have done numerous improvements to the plaza. For the last 52 years, we've been having a barbecue in the plaza. I've participated in that for the last 35 years. I've seen the fees go from $250 up to the last check I just wrote a few weeks ago was $2,800 and some change. I would just like to see if you're going to start giving them such a huge discount, because if we were to apply for the same quadrants they would do, it would total about, I believe, $1,700 for each event. So they'd be way over $30,000 for the year, and it's at $1,900. I mean, how can you treat the rest of the nonprofits in a manner like that? I just don't understand it. And Lori, I've had this conversation with you for the last 2 years about giving us a discount on this, because if the fees keep going up, we're not going to do this any longer. We've lost the ox roast, the turkey barbecue in the plaza. Pretty soon there's going to be nothing left in the plaza that's old Sonoma. You know, I realize they've been there for 20-something years, and it's not exactly old Sonoma, but we have to have a fair playing field if we're going to continue doing this. I mean, you approved the monument for General Vallejo, or the statue rather. We're going to donate to that. This money is going to come from money that we generate through our chicken barbecue we have on the plaza. Originally, when I first started in the Native Sons, that was our primary fundraiser, that chicken barbecue. Mm-hmm. In order to keep up with the amount of donations we put out into the community these days between high school scholarships and helping out at grad night and several other softball teams that we sponsor, we've had to do other things. And we are 100% nonprofit. Nobody gets paid a dime for what we do. It's all in the good of the community. And I just would like to see if you're going to continue giving them a discount, you need to give us some sort of discount as well, and the rest of the organizations that are doing something that's community orientated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montini. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Here I go again. Rosemary Pedronzini. When I read newspapers. I don't have a computer, but when I read what Gary wrote, I agree with him. I live on 2nd Street West. We do not go to Tuesday night farmer market anymore. You go down there and they got blankets and all this, and if you want to go somewhere, you got to climb over people. What in the world is that doing to the lawn? Like the Vintage Festival, it's 2 days. I get up early, and the poor city workers are there in the plaza 7:30 after farmers market, cleaning up everybody's litter. I hate litter. I do my street. The nonprofits, and I'm not saying this because of Maria, my daughter and son-in-law, volunteer for the Vintage Festival and also for the Native Sons. The Kiwanis, or the Native Sons, they got rid of the turkey barbecue. I don't know what in the world this town is coming to. The old-time people, I'm old-time. But the younger kids, like my daughter and Montini and all, they're trying to help to get money for nonprofits. And you're not giving them the money that they need. They turn it all back to the city. Farmers market is great. I used to go in the beginning, and my husband. I will not go down there Tuesday night. I don't want to step over, as I said, I don't want to repeat myself. Everybody there they come down our street, 2nd Street West. You should see all the stuff. They start 4 o'clock undoing their vehicles, taking it down to the park. Oh, they're having a whoopee time. Are they really spending all this money for farmers market? think about it. You should go around and ask those people. The whole darn plaza behind Spain Street is full with these people. Yes, we need tourists, but my God, we're getting overrun. I just wonder if you would take account how many of these people there in the plaza are buying from farmers market. And I bet you not even 50% of them. They're going there for a good time, bring their own wine and food, and listening to the music. And I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I could go on, but I know you're going to shut me off. I got 30 more seconds, but I'm going to say thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Rosemary. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, I'm John Toolsey. I'm the managing partner and executive chef of the Girl and the Fig. I'd like to say I hear community a lot in this discussion, but I don't think community is really a part of this project anymore. I also hear, so that's something that jumps out at me. We are for profit. I want to make that very clear. But our profit helps pay taxes for the city of Sonoma. And I think where I was really taken off guard by what Gary wrote and the idea of subsidization is what we're saying here is we're subsidizing people to come in. The city is paying people to come in and lower the tax revenues. Because I will tell you as a business operator, it is a worst day of the week. Our sales are horribly affected by it. And as Gary spoke to that, our servers, our employees are affected by this. And to call it a farmer's market, I think, is a farce, because it's not a farmer's market. It's an event. And I believe there probably was an RFP at the beginning for a farmer's market. And things change, but it's not a farmer's market anymore. It's an event. And it's an event where the farmers themselves, if you ask them, will tell you, we're struggling, because it's become something that it no longer is for us. It's not about us. And so the idea that the city would subsidize this, to take money out of their own pocket, because it lowers us, business operators, around the plaza. It takes money out of our pocket, which means we pay less in taxes to you, the city, to our fellow citizens, is really mind-boggling to me. Now, for transparency, I also want to say that we applied to be in the market this year and we were turned down. And that's where the community part really, I don't understand it. Because in going back and forth with Christopher Welch and the team there, I think the Girl and the Fig is a wonderful example of the community. And I think we would be a wonderful participant in the city event. Not a market, we're not a farmer. We do farm, but we're not a farmer's market. But we were turned down. I still don't understand why we were turned down. There's a scoring sheet that's supposedly used in the process, but we're not allowed to see it. But that's another subject. But I just wanted to read the email that I sent to Chris, because I think it sums up our views on this. And again, the idea that the city is subsidizing this is maddening. But basically I said, Chris, I recently discovered that Croaks and Tokes was chosen over our Fig Rig for the Valley of the Moon. Croaks and Tokes was chosen over Fig Rig for the Valley of the Moon Farmers Market. Now, this is a business located in Katati. I must say I'm even more...
30 seconds. So.
I understand. I must say I'm even more befuddled by the process, scoring system, or lack thereof, and the adherence to principles of community market. I cannot see how a vehicle located in Katati, based outside of our direct community, could or should be chosen over a business located several hundred feet away from the location of the market. And I struggle to understand how this can benefit our community, as I would be surprised if this vendor is actively engaged in the Sonoma Valley's labor market, business community, or tax base. Thank you.
Is that...
What? A minute. So that's my statement. I just, if you're going to subsidize the city, subsidize the market or the event facility, please don't do it at our expense or the city's revenue. It makes no sense to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good way to get 6 minutes. I'm Sandra Bernstein, the Girl in the Fig, and to add on to what John has to say, I too think it's kind of silly to subsidize the farmers market. We actually offered to pay additional monies to be in the farmers market to actually assist more than what the fees were, because that's how much we wanted to be in the market. We also had intentions of giving a percentage of our sales back to our community to help each nonprofit every single week. we figured that if we're going to have a slow night on Tuesday night because of the market, if we can't beat them, we may as well join them. When they said, oh, we'll give you a table, you can't use your truck, we said, what's the point? If we were going to do that, we would have done it 15 years ago. So we're trying to stay relevant. We're trying to keep our employees busy, and we kind of feel that we've been discriminated against. And again, we're one of the top taxpayers in town. We want to continue to be that. We want to keep our staff happy and employed. And I think that there's a lot of things that are wrong with this farmer's market, and obviously this isn't the time, but we will be visiting you quite a bit as the contract comes up for renewal, because we're very dissatisfied the way this farmer's market is being run. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Anyone else wishing to speak? This is your time. All right, I'm ready to close and bring it back to council. All right, Councilmember Cook.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and start by saying there's a lot of moving parts to this. I've been on the council, as I always say, for 3 years. Gallion is the only one that's been up here longer than I have, Mayor Gallion. I only get 2 hours of sleep a night.
You're excused. Okay.
But I remember the old councils talking about the farmers market, and there was a time where we thought we were going to lose the farmers market. I've heard the past public works director saying the park was being overused, and there was different parts of the plaza to try to keep the plaza pristine. Then when I was mayor, I was kind of met with a big decision almost every night. I guess it was even when I got on the council, when nonprofits would come to the city council and they would ask for us to waive our fees. And I really felt that it was it was unfair to the council members. Because if you're running for re-election, and you say no, or if it's your buddy out there and you say no, it puts you in a really, really bad position. So that's where the community fund kind of came from in my mind. And then Rachel, in one of the council goal sessions, had the brilliant idea to put the 1.5% of the budget towards it, which I thought was great, win-win situation. And anybody who reads the newspaper or walks in the Safeway and talks to constituents like I do, that's very unpopular right now because we were trying to spread the wealth around. But the reason we were spreading the wealth around was because of what we're talking about tonight. I don't think we're really talking 100% about the beauty of the plaza, trying to keep it as pristine as we can where nobody can walk on it. But we don't want to tear up the plaza either. And we have to have city staff or an event coordinator be on site when the plaza is being used. So it makes sense to me when there's a farmer's market that they're set up, it's every night. Yes, they'll probably have a prorated rate different than some other special events. But I want the other special events to be compensated, and that's what the community fund was all about. I don't think we've reached that goal yet, and I've had a lot of thinking about this when you're up here and you'll hear me say probably the rest of this year about matrix voting. I hate it. I think matrix voting is one of the worst things a council can ever do, and we've been doing it. And I'll give you one example. When I have a constituent call me up and said, how can you dismantle the Tier 1, open up the community fund, but allow it only to be good for 2 years when it's dealing with maybe the Vintage House or something else? I didn't vote for that. But in the matrix, it had 3 votes. So here we are with probably, this appeal is actually an old problem that we're trying to fix. And we're not going to fix it tonight. I can tell you right now. I like the farmers market. I think the farmers market has done a good job. I think that there's always issues with any event in Sonoma. I would like to kind of get to know a little bit more about the criterias, because I've had other people ask me sometimes, why this and why not that? What is local? What is not local? You know, is Whole Foods local? Is Safeway not? There's all these criteria. So I'd like to know a little bit more about that, but I'll get back to the subject about tonight. I appreciate Maria coming and holding that sign up. I've talked to your organization a lot, and I think the community fund was kind of born out of what happened a couple years ago. And I'm going to be working on that as I'm on the council to try to figure out how to get fairness to the nonprofits without hurting, some nonprofits in the way. But tonight we're talking mostly about a subsidy of the farmers market. And I want to ask city staff a question, because in the supplemental report, I see that let's start at 2012, because that's when it gets simpler. 2012, $4,503 for the year, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did they pay any trash removal?
It wasn't, I went through their files, and these numbers came off of each annual application. I think that's the time when they started picking up the garbage tab themselves, which they still are responsible, but they just paid Sonoma Garbage directly instead of us collecting it.
So right now, what I'm seeing is 2012, 4,500, 2013, 4,200, 2014, 4,000, 2015, 5,204. And I've heard the number 14,000 being thrown about, I guess, as a comparison for what other nonprofits would be using the plaza for.
If I could,
Yeah.
that 14,000 was a calculation based on if they had been charged per each week for the event, it would have amounted to $14,000.
For the whole season,
Excuse me, but
Okay.
but the
That's
public
the
does
number
not-
that Wendy Atkins had come up with and included in her staff report that went to CSEC.
It's a moot point. I'm not basing my decision based on that number, but I just wanted to, I did want to clarify the 2012 through 2015. So I do want to listen to some of my colleagues, what they have to say about this, but I am going to vote for the denial of this appeal. But I want to send a strong message to our community. The Community Grant Fund is open, and it was designed pretty much for cases like this, for nonprofits to use our plaza and be compensated back. That was what was in my mind when I was one of the brainchilds that came up with this idea. Because what was happening is we were telling city staff, no, save money here, use recycled paper here. Then we would get up here and we'd just start waiving fees. And then city staff was out there monitoring all these events. So we're saying, we're going to waive them, but we still have to have somebody out there. So this was all to kind of fix that fix-all problem. But what kind of got lost in the shuffle is I think people forget why the community fund was invented in the first place. And I don't want anybody to think tonight that I'm voting for the denial of this appeal because I'm favoring the farmers market. I'm favoring every nonprofit that is in Sonoma Valley. They need help, and they give back. And we don't have a Parks and Recreation, and this is all part of it. So I'm hoping that we all can take a deep breath through this long process, because it's going to be a process as a community grant fund goes through and everything works itself out. So on my straw poll tonight, I will be voting to deny the appeal.
Okay. Next, Councilmember Hundley.
I'll start with the grand finale of my what I'm going to say, and that is that I'm going to be supporting the appeal. So the things that I've heard tonight from the CSEC, which I really appreciate you being here, Mr. Petlock, explaining how you ended up with this decision, and I hear that the values that you all were trying to pursue were supporting farmers, because that's something that's important to our community, and I hear you, and that aspiration. And then I also hear other nonprofits, because it seems blatantly unfair that you guys also do amazing things. You've been around forever. You end up paying very high costs for very few days, and it seems very unfair. I hear businesses on the plaza. I know I've heard from many businesses that it's the worst night of the week, worst night for servers. And I know that that's a concern, and I know that there's another business on the plaza that applied to be in the farmer's market that also was not accepted this year. And in full disclosure, I was a vendor at the market the past 2 years, although I'm not this year, although I did apply, although I'm sure there was a very good reason that I wasn't accepted. But I also hear from Sonoma residents that the market is getting very big, and it's like in the peak of the summer, going there and trying to find your friends, it's like looking in an ocean of people, and it gets crowded. I mean, it's almost impressively crowded, but I know, I've noticed in working there as a vendor that a lot of the people now are coming in from Santa Rosa and Rohnert Park. So the word's gotten out about this really cool small town event that we have. So I think that's contributing to it getting so huge. And then I hear from the farmers market that, I mean, I understand nonprofits still have to run themselves like a business, and it is getting very big, and you have to cover your costs, and also try to pursue some of your values, which are also to help the farmers. And then I also hear this comment about being partners with the city. But I think that this year there's been a few events that have become discussed. There are Sonoma events that have almost been victims of their own success of becoming so large that the organizations that were originally managing them, it becomes too big. These, of course, are the City Party, which the city has recently taken in-house, and the Parade, whose future we're not sure. I'm sure that it's going to be managed by organizations that are going to love it. But I see the farmers market is kind of following in its own footsteps, and I noticed from the letter from you guys that one of the reasons that you have rising costs is you have enhanced your entertainment and increased your staffing, which of course the staffing has to increase as the population increases, but the enhanced entertainment is just going to lead to an increased population. So I wonder about the values of the market. If the money is being funneled into some directions, and then when it comes to actually funding the farmers, it then comes back to the city for us to basically subsidize the farmer's market supporting the thing that is at its core, which is farmers. So I have the budget here. I don't know if the public can see it, but of the $76,000 budget for this year, for combined payrolls, $38,000, entertainment is $10,000, and security and crowd control, because of all the people, is $6,500. So as someone who has worked at a lot of markets, I've probably done a dozen regular markets, a handful of farmers markets particularly. I've seen some of them have struggled. Like some cities are just begging people to come to their farmers markets, and this market is not the case. I mean, this is a prime market that vendors everywhere want to be in. That's why I wanted to be here. It's very competitive. And it seems to me like an opportunity where it should be able to not only support itself, but also be able to, contribute money to the direction that it purports to be doing. So I wonder if it's time to, at the end of this season, to perhaps have a discussion about it again, maybe consider another RFP, talk about what it is that we are even looking for. And then for this year, I don't want to pull the rug out from each other, but I would like to go back to the same funding scheme from the last handful of years, whatever the small increase or whatever it is for this year, and then next year we can start in a new direction maybe. So.
Gary, before I have you talk, I would like to have Mayor Pro Tem Agramonte.
This is one of my favorite subjects. There are a few notes that I've made. With respect to the Food Action Plan, I think this council supported the Food Action Plan in spirit only. We didn't do anything more than that. So one of the things I'm very interested in is low-cost produce. And I know that EBT cards, I think it's supplemented for EBT cards here. But if the produce is expensive, that means EBT cards are not really getting the full value what it's meant for. So that's a concern for me. And I know that the Redwood Empire Food Bank actually has a discount store in their facility, and would like it if perhaps Councilmember Edwards would take a look at your own board to find out what plans might be coming here. I know that the Range has offered their parking lot, their facility to sell produce for people at discounted rates. And of course, the community health center might be another idea. That's something that's very important to me. For me, this issue is apples and oranges, because this is a weekly event versus intermittent events like this 4th of July, the other events that we have here, which are unbelievable, just wonderful. But as I said, and I'm a little disappointed because my constant question is, what do these events do to the businesses around the plaza? And I've been told, well, we check with the chamber and who else? The Visitors Bureau. That's where we check. Things are going okay. Well, guess what? I know people around the plaza, and I know this. And so these are all the things that are concerning me. I actually do support the appeal, and but I think going along with Councilmember Hundley, this might be something that we could look at in the future. The other thing, of course, and I think Councilmember, God, I forgot your name. Councilmember, good old, what's his name? Sorry. Cook, thank you so much. Cook.
It's the hour, madam.
Yeah, mentioned, yeah, it is getting late for me, right, I guess. Mentioned recreation. You know what? I sat here, as you said, in the nosebleed seats for many years because as former president of the community center, we used to come here for funding. And what's interesting is that I remember a council member that was proud some years ago that the city was able to get so many recreation services cheap, because we could never do it as cheaply as nonprofits. So how did that all get started here in Sonoma? I don't know. I have no idea where that comes from. I know my background is in nonprofits, and yes, we do good work. We do what we say we're going to do, but that doesn't mean that as a full-service city that we should not support recreation in this city. And I'm getting off target here, but as I said, my interest is the Food Action Plan, low-cost produce, and the effects on the businesses around the plaza. So those are the reasons why I would like to look at this appeal, and also am interested in what our Councilmember Hundley added to look at this in the future. Thank you.
I have a question of the city attorney. Attorney Walters, because we have a council member who is bringing this action forward, when does that council member get to speak again? In other words, should I reserve my comments for the end, or could I weigh in now before that council member speaks again, or how do we measure this in a fair basis?
There really is no rule, and council members are authorized to appeal virtually any lower body's decision, and they are treated like any other council member on the dais. Typically, there's no limit on the amount of time they can spend speaking. I've not seen that happen before. So I think you can calibrate when it is you'd like to speak. If you'd like to speak before Councilmember Edwards speaks again or after, that's totally up to the chair's discretion.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to state that for the audience so that you knew what the process was and that we're not giving additional time to any one side or the other. All right. So, Councilmember Edwards, why don't you go ahead and speak, and then I have a few questions to ask.
So, in bringing this up and listening, I appreciate the comments from the commissioners that are here and the market staff. The City Council in Napa urged the chef's market to go away in Napa because it became such a party, and it was, and it turned out that the businesses were suffering so much, and somebody actually came in and did a calculation of how much revenue the city was losing, and we haven't done that calculation yet here. In response to Councilmember Cook, I never ever worry about what I'm not running for re-election, and I don't worry about what I worry about what I have to say.
Gary, you're taking that out of context.
And
please.
But you also mentioned that it's about what your friends might do. I don't think about that. I think about what is the right thing for our community as a whole, not just people that might vote for me or people that are friends, because we have to treat everybody the same. I'm not trying to pick on you. So when I think about it, I think about the main reasons that I came to the market just a couple times last year, because it is so busy. I witnessed the damage to the plaza, but this is not what it's really about. The appeal is about we're putting a use on the plaza that has a cost to the entire community, not just the people who come to the market, but everybody who pays taxes in this town. So, what really put me over the top was the issue about the restrooms, and I think our Mr. Takasuki would tell us that we want to remodel the bathroom. So if you remodel the bathroom in your home, it's $40,000, $50,000 generally, and so we're being asked to remodel those restrooms, and I'll bet it's going to cost $250,000. I mean, I think we'd be lucky if that's all it costs us. So here we are. We keep stuffing everything onto the plaza, and I have no problem with my Rotary Club. 40 guys come every Tuesday, and they come out, hang out at the market, bring wine. They bring a little table. Everybody meets there. But I've also had folks call me saying, "Oh, you can go online and reserve a table on the plaza." I haven't seen that myself. I had a couple of calls today from former council members who told me that was the case, and they happen to be in the entertainment business and visitor business. To answer Councilmember Agramonte, the way all this got started is people like the Native Sons, people like Bob Kennard, who started the Ox Roast, people who just wanted to do something for the community. Bob Kennard started the Ox Roast to save the Chamber of Commerce. And even in my time, only being here around 25 years, I watched the council subsidize the Chamber of Commerce, just a straight cash grant in the past. And now we've got this program where the chamber is doing workforce, and I think it's a great solution. But it's really just the people of this town. Redwood Empire Food Bank, to answer that question, we deliver a truckload of food, produce, canned goods. We mostly produce because our goal is to have healthy food out there. We had a $22 million budget last year serving the Redwood Empire, and when I tell people that we serve 780,000 meals, and so we do all of the summer meals, summer lunch, supper club for the Boys and Girls Club, and it's so important for young people to be able to learn on a full stomach. But we do deliver Lulu's, Vintage House, Boys and Girls Club. We're active, and we're fortunate that we have a lot of great folks in town that have helped raise money. We had an individual who wrote a check to us last year for $100,000 from Sonoma. And another group matched that, which was fantastic. So we are active in that. But my point is that, and I'm not looking to discount everybody, because we have a cost to maintain this plaza, and I would just as soon see that everybody continues to pay, but it's like let's make the playing field equal. And it's just my opinion, just as a business person, that I see that we're overusing the resource. And when Bobby Kennard started the farmers market years ago, and Bobby's a world famous organic farmer, I would love to see some kind of matrix where it has to be 75% farmers, or that the vendors that are cooking products. I came by and this is probably a year or two ago, and I think it was Thai food or something like that, and there was this huge box of Cisco tomatoes. It's like, come on. And the guy right across the way is selling tomatoes, or the patch is selling tomatoes. I mean, it's why do we allow that to happen? And to me, it's we keep growing this thing and this enhanced music and things like that. Why are we not using the Grinstead Theater? Why are we not dancing on the cement instead of dancing on the lawn? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I think the CSCC would be great if they could take a look at how we spread out the market. And I would love to see the market from time to time go up to Depot Park on a Tuesday night and put some life into Depot Park, maybe with a baseball game going. I don't know. But I think we overuse the situation now. And I'll leave with one last little pet peeve that I have. So I leased my little building out on the plaza, and I spent $14,000 to put an ADA spot in my building that you can't even drive a car into, and it's never been parked in. And I used to be able to drive my big van and just pull in and kind of cockeyed and share my neighbor's property, no problem. But we take away ADA accessibility when we have this market every week as well, because we use up every ADA spot on the Horseshoe, on the plaza, period. Not to mention that the staff leaves early on Tuesdays. Maybe they don't leave early, but they have to disperse. And that costs us money. That's every time we cut into those issues, it costs the city money. And I think we need to really look at how much money we're losing, as Mr. Toolsy said, about, we're picking one pocket to pick another one, and everybody's picking each other's pocket. And I think we need to really treat this like a business, which it is. And the plaza is wide open for anybody to go have a picnic any day they want. And I encourage that. But let's not overuse it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to speak now unless someone else has a burning contribution. Yes, Councilmember Hundley.
That reminded me of the first thing I wrote on my piece of paper, which is actual cost, and we have a finite budget, which a lot of this, the community service fund, and even this philosophy today, like Councilmember Edwards said, at the end of the day, the five of us are here to spend our city's budget, which, while we get to enjoy a successful economy, there's a limit to it, and I'm sure we would love to fund all of our wonderful and beneficial nonprofits, but picking one over the other is like picking a favorite child. So the idea is with the community service fund and with everything else we do is to have at least a strategic way to spend the money in a level playing field if we're going to let people have opportunities for stuff like this.
Yes, Councilmember Cook.
Well, I guess this is where the confusing part starts. Tonight, the appealing process, it sounds like it might have the votes to go through. Then are we going to pick a number? Or where we're going to go from there is the main part. But I do want to find out if we are actually talking about the farmers market, looking at like the complaints that I've heard from the colleagues up here, or if we're just going to be setting a price.
Tonight, the focus is on the appeal of the fees and the associated conditions of approval. And you can make any decision that you want. If the appeal is upheld, then you definitely need to establish, well, what are the fees going to be for the upcoming year?
So I guess my question is just this. As I sit here and I've heard obviously a lot of comments in relation to the farmers market and their contract of how they operate. I've heard issues about what we charge regular nonprofits versus the subsidy that we get for the farmers market. And to me, my decision is basically on these fees. As Gay just reminded us, that's what we're here to do tonight. I think all of this valued information and your input, it all has value because it's important for us to hear this as to whether this is the venue or not in which we can do something about some of the other decisions. I think that that might be in a future conversation. I'm sure the board appreciates the input. I know the council members appreciate the input, and that this is something that needs to move forward within the organization. That being said, we have an RFP and we have a contract for a group to perform farmers markets. We already have the application presented to us. We've already had it reviewed by the CSEC. Some of those terms are not acceptable, and that's why we have an appeal before us. So the question is, for me, what are we actually going to do here tonight? And to me, if we are going to go ahead and uphold the fees, what are those fees? Are what we have done historically, what we did last year? Is this something that we're moving forward? I'm not one that is looking to subsidize an alcohol application, an alcohol permit fee. I don't believe that's what's being asked here. And I know that our application fee has also jumped a considerable amount of money. So for me, if I'm looking at this, I'd like to have a number dialed in here for dollars as to what we're doing. I see $10,000 in revenue from sponsorship, and I see under permits and plaza fees, I see $4,500. So the question is, according to the representation given by Wendy Atkins on page 163 of the packet that we have before us, and I'm not sure what number that might be in any other agenda, it shows the rental fees that have been charged since 2012 through 2015. So is this what is in contention here? Is it the CSEC's decision to go ahead and mandate that they are to spend X amount of dollars on a program? So I think we have a few things that we need to unwind here before we can actually make a decision, and I'm looking for comments on those items if you feel I'm going down the trail.
Yeah, that was my question earlier.
If I'm counting votes, and we all are doing that constantly at a council meeting, I would suspect that this appeal will prevail. And maybe that's all you do tonight, is that you take that motion and then you refer it back to staff to come up with some suggestions as to how much the fees should be, what they should cover, and the conditions that the lower commission felt worthy of imposing. The food stamp card and giving discounts to farmers. I was unclear how that works, but so maybe that would be a second meeting. I know that means we may have another long discussion about these things, but I think maybe it deserves that discussion when you really want to get down to the details on how much the fee is going to be. So I tend to recommend that you take the action on the appeal that overturns the commission's decision. You refer it back to staff to come forward with a report as quickly as possible on a recommended approach to the fees and what they should cover.
Well, we have the farmers market opening in 2 weeks.
True, but I don't think it needs to, I don't think the council is going to impose a fee that will bankrupt the farmers market and prevent them from opening. We're not talking about that. I'm confident of that. So when they pay the fee, do they typically pay it up front?
The CSEC grants them an exception and allows them to pay their fee at the end of the season.
They did that this time, or they do that every year?
It's my understanding that's been the course for the last couple of years. Is that right, Bill? Yeah.
So if they have to, if the council would want to consider that too, but if you follow past practice, they don't even have to pay this fee for 6 months. So I don't see a major problem with you putting this decision off for another 2 or 3 weeks.
Right. Well, the point of my asking all of these questions is because I feel that this is more than just one process that we are considering here tonight. So if we can address the question of a vote for the appellant or the,
I have a question, Mayor.
okay, or the project applicant, okay, then I think that's where we need to go. But I will wait to hear more information from Councilmember Cook.
Yeah, because that's why I asked my question earlier. Is we're 2 weeks away from a farmer's market starting, and I want to make sure that the EBT program would be in place at the beginning of the farmer's market. So if it sounds like if we do table this, you said it's not going to hurt anything. If you have an EBT card, it possibly would be one. And then as far as waiving the rental fee for the farmers selling produce. So that's
Well, if the appeal carries, that wipes that decision out, so the EBT card would not be a mandatory feature of the farmer's market, and the...
Precisely.
And so that would just remain as has occurred in the past in those particular features. And if the council decides at a subsequent hearing, maybe 3 or 4 weeks from now, that EBT cards are mandated, it can be instituted at that point in the farmer's market.
Okay.
I don't understand. I don't see an urgency to have everything in place at the time that the farmer's market begins. These issues, I don't think, will have a material financial adverse effect on the way the market runs or whether it runs at all.
Yeah, no, I just wanted clarification so my colleagues knew what the appeal was going to do.
And there is the comment that we have encouraged, and then I will defer to you, Gay, that we have encouraged that we do have a community grant fund, and that this is an opportunity also to see if anything might show up in that particular area too. So, yes. Gay.
With all due respect to the city attorney, I would just like to offer up another alternative that seems a lot simpler to me. And I'm not sure where Councilmember Edwards wanted to go with this, but a real simple solution, it seems that there's 3 in favor of the appeal, would be to revert back to the same conditions and fees that were charged last year. And for this year, especially since we are coming to an end of their 2-year contract, and this can all be hashed out this coming year with a new RFP, and you can discuss the fees and who sets them and all of that. That's just a suggestion, unless you want to bring it back.
Okay. Well, I'd like to hear comments on that. Okay, yes, Councilmember Hundley.
I do think it would be beneficial to hear from staff, particularly Wendy Atkins, about the fee amount, because I don't know, maybe there was adjustments of things that were made from last year.
Can I just say something? The CSEC I'm not really sure. Maybe that's where Chris Petlock could offer. They just come up with this fee. That's not really, to my knowledge, it's not really based on anything.
Well,
they just decide what they think is fair.
It's kind of broken down. I mean, $9.58 application fee, $2.56 alcohol permit fee, $7.50 rent, no maintenance fee or security deposit. So I don't know. Last year it was $5,204. So whatever the terms were, I mean, if they were satisfactory for the city, I just don't know if maybe she thought something was missing from that, or.
In last year's staff report, the staff recommended that there not be a subsidy for the fees.
Well, in consideration for the market and not wanting to make them go through more bureaucracy for this, I would be in support of sticking with the status quo, and then if there's going to be some crazy adjustment, let it be a new cycle. And that would be the fees from last year. Sure. I would say I would support supporting the status quo, which means keeping the fees from last year. And then if we're going to drastically change anything, then it would be something that would start at the next lease cycle so everyone can know well ahead of time what they're getting into.
I have another clarifying question. When I read at the bottom of page 163, if subject to the standard fees, Valley of the Moon Certified Farmers Market would be subject to $14,708 for rental and maintenance fees, and would be required to provide a $10,400 refundable damage deposit. So is the 10,400 on top of the $14,708?
That's correct, and that's a refundable damage deposit. We require those of every event that's held on the plaza.
So that would be quite an increase unless they had an offset for that in order to be able to do a $24,000 adjustment. Is that correct? You would be basically putting into effect $24,000 as your fees and deposit.
If the current fee schedule was applied.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, that was, I think, to be really clear about that, that was Ms. Atkins' calculations of what fees would normally be applied to this event if the standard fees were applied. And so at the bottom of page 163, she said that I don't think this has ever been assessed against the farmer's market, to my knowledge. It's never been assessed. And so she was just saying, if these were assessed, if this was treated like any other standard operation, that the $14,000 would be the rental fee, and there'd be a refundable $10,400 deposit. But that's never been assessed against the farmer's market.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councilmember Cook.
So I guess I keep going back to this $2,500 for the EBT. Could I have the farmer market staff tell me what exactly is that $2,500? Because that seems like that's something that you're spending in lieu of rental.
You need to stand up, please.
But what is the $2,500? I mean, what do you physically spend that on something? What is that?
We instituted very briefly last year an EBT matching program. So when EBT customers come to the farmers market manager's table to buy tokens, which they can spend on appropriate items at the market, okay, which is produce and certain other prepackaged foods, just like at a grocery store. They give us their EBT card, we scan it, they say, I want $20 in tokens, okay? Many farmers markets will match that so that when we take $20 off their EBT, we give them $40 in tokens, okay? This is called an EBT matching program. It's how to support the farmers and offer something to the lower income people on EBT. So the cost for the year to do EBT matching would be $2,000, and then the CSEC requested that we advertise and get the word out with the additional $500 to the appropriate community so they would know about it.
And that's been my question all night, is if we raise your fees, like they're talking back to what 2015 would be the $5,200, it sounds like this was part of with the CSEC, kind of a deal. Would you not continue doing the EBT program with matching if you were charged $5,204?
We probably wouldn't. No, yeah, because we've got to, we've got a budget that basically breaks even, so we can look for other sponsors, which we would try to do. But that was the request from them as a way to implement some of the food action plan, was to do this particular program.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that we might want to add that $2,500 to, or subtract it out of rental fees.
Yes, Councilmember Edwards.
So Chris, can you tell me how much you guys transacted in EBT last year? Because EBT is available for all farmers markets. So
right.
What
we sold, the reason that figure is about $2,000 is because we sold about $1,700 in EBT last year. Okay. And so we figured with the matching, the sales would go up somewhat. So we gave the CSCC a ballpark of about $2,000 to match. Okay, figuring we'd sell about 2,000, and then we'd have to match that.
Right, but the EBT program doesn't go away because that's federally funded.
Oh yeah, so, no. We sell EBT tokens no matter what. It's just the matching.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay, if you have anything further to comment on the EBT, is there anything further? You definitely, obviously you would go back and find out, but you really feel that the matching program would be scratched as a result of this action.
Yes, and the farmers have come to us and said, you know, we want to figure out in conjunction with us how to increase farmer sales. So this is one of the programs we came up talking with the CSEC. It's also that's the reason. It's to accomplish several things. Okay.
Thank you very much. Council members have any other questions of either CSEC or the farmers market? Are we ready to propose an action? Okay, Councilmember Hundley.
I make a motion to uphold the appeal and set the fees for the Valley Moon Certified Farmers Market for this season to be the same as last year.
I'll second.
And how about, I'm sorry to interrupt, how about conditions? Anything with respect to the EBT matching grant or to waive rental fees for farmers selling produce?
I personally, I think that those are laudable goals, and if they go to the heart of the organization, then they should, you know, adjust their budget and figure out a way to make it happen. But I don't see from our end putting that on them at this point.
I'll amend that. My second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to uphold the appeal and determine the amount of plaza use fees to be charged as last year's dollar amount. All right. Do we have any further discussion? And staff is clear on this? All right. City attorney's clear? Then I believe we are ready for a yes. Councilmember Hundley.
If we did want to bring this back for a further looking discussion, is that something that we should like schedule now, or just join in the motion to like bring it back at the end of the season to talk about it again, or do we wait until?
Well, their permission to operate the farmers market expires after this season, so staff will be bringing something back to you, to address the next season, and so we'll be doing that.
Okay. So maybe our comments tonight are enough to.
I think so.
Be
yes.
noted by the
Yes.
staff. Okay,
Direction has been given and received.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, then I would like to go ahead and call for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Agramonte. And this is an aye to approve to agree with the appeal.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Hundley?
Aye.
Councilmember Cook?
No.
Mayor Gallion?
I am voting at this point to put the 24,000 into effect. Or am I voting to put in the $5,200 in effect?
The motion is to charge them the same amount that they were charged last year in plaza use fees, with no other conditions.
The total amount would be $5,204.
$5,204. Then that is an aye for me. If I was to sum up, I think we have four that are looking to keep this the same. I think with the parameters that we would be discussing any further actions in close when they come forward for renewal of the farmers market. I think that there's a lot of comments that have been issued here. I also feel the subject of subsidies is something that we as council members need to go ahead and be aware of, and what we are going to do for the future, because this is kind of an eye-opening conversation. I don't know how you take an organization that's had a contract for several years here and suddenly tell them in year 4 that you are changing the position, especially 2 weeks before their opening. And the question would be, it would be like saying to a business that this is an additional fee that we are assessing. that we have never assessed before. And I want to say that as the awareness of this has become more transparent, I will be looking into what our policy would be in the future. I thank the CSEC for their particular efforts to go ahead and bring about what are programs that they're charged to do in coordination with the farmers market. But on if I was a business, I would have a very difficult situation, such as anyone else who is running other events that are happening this year, to suddenly be surcharged this type of increase with 2 weeks' notice and possible catastrophic failure as a result of a budget process. I think this is fair warning, and hopefully you feel that your concerns have been heard. Thank you. And with that, we will move on to our next item. And there's an agenda here somewhere. Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break. Come back to order if everyone's ready. We have item 7C, which is discussion, consideration, and possible action on the selection of a consultant for the preparation of a housing impact fee nexus study as called for in the City of Sonoma Housing Element. And David Goodison, our planning director, will lead us off.
Thank you, Mayor Gallion, members of the City Council. By way of background, Sonoma's housing element includes implementation measures aimed at compensating for the loss of redevelopment, which had been the city's primary source of funding for its affordable housing programs. Specifically, measures 1 and 8 suggest establishing a housing impact fee that could be levied upon various types of commercial and residential development. Under state law, any such fee would need to be validated through a nexus study that demonstrates that the proposed fees are reasonably related to development impacts. The preparation of a nexus study is a technical task that requires specialized expertise. For that reason, the council allocated $45,000 for consultant assistance. And in its meeting of October 5th, 2015, the council approved a draft request for proposals soliciting consultant assistance for the preparation of a nexus study in conjunction with an evaluation of the city's inclusionary housing program. After circulating the RFP, the city received feedback from a number of interested consulting firms to the effect that the budget allocation was too low. To assure that a sufficient number of quality proposals were received, staff circulated an updated RFP that included a provision to the effect that proposals suggesting a higher budget would not be disqualified. Ultimately, 6 proposals were submitted. Of these, 3 were selected for further consideration, including interviews with consultant teams by a selection panel consisting of the city manager, myself, Veronica Nebb of the city attorney's office, and the senior planner. Upon interviewing the consultant teams and further analysis of the proposals, the panel unanimously recommended Kaiser Marston, KWA, for this project. The selection panel further recommends that the following optional tasks be included. One of these would be an overlap analysis that provides legal protection by verifying that the residential housing impact fees and commercial housing impact fees don't result in double counting. And the second would be a residential financial feasibility analysis that would ensure that the residential housing impact fee is sustainable in the light of other housing production costs. And so our recommendation is to authorize staff to execute a contract with Kaiser Marston KWA for the preparation of a nexus study with these optional tasks. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe at this point, if council members have any questions of staff, this would be the time that you would ask them. All right, Councilmember Hundley.
Could you explain the overlap analysis?
I'm going to give it my best shot.
Okay, thanks.
Well, these fees are based in part on calculations of job creation and other related impacts that arise out of the production of the housing unit or out of the creation of this new office building. And it can be argued, it has been argued, that in some cases the effects that you're measuring to calculate these fees overlap between the two types of development. And so therefore it needs to be verified or validated that that's not happening in any significant manner.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Agramonte.
And so that leads into double counting? Is that what this says?
The objective is to avoid double counting.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Councilmember Hundley?
So as a part of this, the question I want to know is how a housing impact fee is going to fit in with, say, encouraging certain kinds of development like rental housing or something. Is that going to be within the scope of this, or is that going to be something that we're going to potentially talk about later and then this study's going to come out but it's not going to be a part of it?
That's going to be part of the scope of this.
Oh, good.
Yes, Councilmember
David,
Edwards.
what do you see in the pipeline that would be possible contributors to that?
Well, we have some notable projects in the pipeline right now, including different hotel proposals, for example, that might be subject to a commercial impact fee if you decide to ultimately impose one. And in addition to that, it's not a project, well, it never really was a project because no application was ever filed, but earlier in the meeting we talked about the 870 Broadway site and a 100% residential project. Could be subject to that. Certain parts of that project might be subject to a residential housing impact fee, and it's possible too that just the simple construction of a single family home might be subject to the residential impact fee.
Thank you.
There's no further questions. I have a question of David. So again, David, in preparing this is actually something that was suggested within the housing element that we prepare, correct?
That's right.
All right. If it's something that we move forward on after the public's engagement and its different processes, would this be something that we would also continue to wrap through the duration of the housing element and therefore would go ahead and cement with our general plan update?
Oh, yes. I mean, this is, in a sense, this has life beyond the housing element. It's not tied to the housing element as such, and the fee could be continued on into the future through subsequent housing element updates. But it's a rather complicated fee analysis that does depend a lot on the current economic circumstances. And so it is usually recommended that these fees be revalidated from time to time, but that can be done independently of the housing element.
Okay, and then the public's engagement in this process, what or how many sessions do you indicate they're going to have an opportunity to input, both commercial as well as residential?
Well, we've budgeted sessions before both the Planning Commission and the City Council, and the optional task of the residential financial feasibility analysis will include extra engagement with residential developers.
Right. And have we used this particular firm before?
We have, but for a very different purpose. I think that they were involved with Measure J somehow? Measure B, excuse me. The hotel initiative. But that was a separate part of Kaiser Marston that handled that.
Just
work.
data analysis, probably more than anything else. Okay, that's great. I remember the name. I couldn't remember what was the association. Okay, is there any other further questions? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. Anyone wishing to step forward and comment on this particular item? Seeing no one, I will go ahead and close it. Back to council for motion and further discussion.
Madam Mayor, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion on the selection of the consultant, what's the name, Meyer?
Yes, right here.
Kaiser Marston, KWA,
Mhm.
to approve that, as a contract.
All right, is that sufficient, city attorney, or do we need to authorize the city manager?
I could
or-
read it over. All right.
Okay, maybe try.
Authorize staff, I'd like to make a motion to authorize staff to execute a contract with Kaiser Marston /KWA for the preparation of a nexus study in conjunction with an evaluation of the city's inclusionary housing program, including optional tasks C and E as set forth in the proposal.
And may I just add the correction that it's actually C and F?
Oh, C.
Sorry
okay.
about that.
C and F.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, for the purposes of passing this through, any further discussion? Okay, I see no further discussion, so let's go ahead and go for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunley?
Aye.
Councilmember Cook?
Aye.
Mayor Gallagher?
Aye, so we have a unanimous approval, and congratulations to the firm of Kaiser Marston, KWA, for preparing our next Nexus study. So, at this point, we have one more item under our regular calendar. It is the item 7D, discussion, consideration, and possible action, providing direction to the mayor regarding the city's vote on an appointment by the city selection committee to the Remote Access Network, referred to as RAN board, at their May 12th, 2016 meeting. And that would be Gay.
Yes. This is the easiest item you're going to have all night, council. And the title almost gives you the whole staff report, but I'll just repeat it. At the Sonoma County Mayors and Council Members Association on May 12th, which is going to be held here at Ramekins, there'll be a meeting, and the evening will include a meeting of the City Selection Committee, which will have on its agenda an appointment to the Remote Access Network Board. Remote Access Network Board, RAN. The position must be filled by a mayor, and Gina Belforti, mayor of Rohnert Park, was the only person who submitted a letter of interest by the advertised deadline. So the purpose of this item is for this council to give direction to the mayor on how she should vote on that appointment.
Okay, any further discussions, questions of staff? All right, let's move it out to the public. Anyone wishing to give any comment on this item, public comment? Seeing none, let's move it back to council and entertaining discussion or possible action.
I move to, okay, the mayor to say yes to Gina.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
That was a total bloodbath, wasn't it?
I believe that is a comment. Seeing no further comment, I would like to go ahead and call for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Hunley?
Aye.
Councilmember Cook?
Aye.
Mayor Gallion?
Yes, and Mayor Belforte, in this particular event, if she is nominated and approved, this is one meeting a year. So this is a very difficult assignment. So if you become mayor and you would like to do this in a future year, it requires just one meeting. All right, so let's go forward. This is now our regular calendar. City Council as successor agency. I do not see any items at that point. So we would move forward to council members' reports and comments. And who wishes to go first?
May I, Madam Mayor?
Okay, we will let Mayor Pro Tem and then Councilmember Cook.
Thank you. I don't have any reports at this time. However, I would like to share that some weeks ago, I had a meeting regarding the cemetery issue that we face, and there was some sharing of some wonderful information, and I'd actually like it to make its way to the agenda, so we can so the rest of this council can see what was discussed. I really support that. I know that was some of our city goals, and it seems to be an ongoing issue of kicking that can down the road. And I thought staff had some great suggestions, so I'm asking for that. Thank you.
Okay, and Acting City Manager Gay, you got that information.
That's noted, and we'll make it happen.
Okay, thank you very much. All right.
Thank
Anyone else? Councilmember Cook.
And I also do agree with what Vice Mayor Agramonte just said. And I did want to announce that my wife and I did give birth. She mostly did most of the work on April 8th, 2016. So it's 4/8. We welcomed Elizabeth Lila Cook into our family. And I just wanted to thank everyone who sent sentiments to us and given us hot meals at night. It's been very appreciative. So thank you to everyone. And I don't have anything to report on committees. I will be at a Sonoma Clean Power meeting possibly on Wednesday.
Okay, anyone else? Councilmember Hundley.
I don't have any committee comments, but I wanted to remind everybody that I love hearing from people, and you can find my phone number and my email address on the city website. And I have a Facebook page. It's Rachel Hundley, Sonoma City Council, and you can see a picture of the meeting from tonight. So thanks.
So I would, this falls to me at this point. I just wanted to remind council members that we're all eagerly awaiting our goal-setting session, which will happen next month. Mine is a particular call out to the public to go ahead if there's some burning issue that you would like to talk to me about, or perhaps have that included as part of my goals. I would like to know about it. Second item is that I think the environmental impact report is still out for the Climate Action Plan 2020. Want to make sure that if you have a burning comment to make on this, that you do so. And I will be meeting on water next Monday, May 2nd, which is our next meeting, for our quarterly meeting. And I will update you then as to the budget, if it's passed, and what the position is, and some of the other pertinent issues that we're studying with water. So, if there is no other council members' reports and comments, I hope to see everyone at the Arbor Day celebration again. There's a lot of hard work done by members of our community towards this effort. It is charming, and it is something that was almost forgotten. And thank goodness to the fact that this group and this committee got together and decided to go ahead and perpetuate this particular practice. So I think those who, whether they were on council or not, were, wholly supportive of this particular process and brought forward that particular day. So now I believe it is city manager comments, announcements, including announcements from successor agency staff.
Okay, I just have a couple of things. Our Public Works Director has asked that I advise you that a section of 4th Street East between East Spain and East Napa will be closed tomorrow because PG&E is going to be doing a gas main replacement project. So it's for you and for the public to be aware of that. We just got word late today that that was going to happen tomorrow. And the other announcement that I just wanted to make, as most people are aware, a referendum petition regarding the leaf blower ordinance was filed with my office last Thursday and was subsequently delivered to the Registrar of Voters' office for signature verification. If we receive notification that the required number of signatures were achieved, the ordinance that you adopted will be suspended, and it will be placed on the council agenda for consideration. Unless the City Council repeals the entire ordinance, it must be submitted to the voters at the next regular election. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just would like to, for point of clarification, that service repair that's being done by PG&E is 4th Street East and...
It's on 4th Street East between Napa and Spain.
Between Napa and Spain. Okay, thank you very much. All right, now I believe we move to the comments from the public, and we have some eager individuals who wish to comment.
Thank you, Mayor Galvin. Joe Costello, 128 Mission Terrace. I'm appearing tonight as the author and signer of a petition for reconsideration of the Masanavi House Event Center decision. On February 1st, the council made a decision to allow 12 weddings at the Masanavi House, no more than 2 per month, among other events to take place there over the course of the year. Subsequent to that, a petition was filed, signed by 27 residents of the neighborhood, to the effect that we received no notice of the council's consideration of a decision. I have 2 comments. Number one, I don't take any pleasure in being here tonight, but there have been 2 wrongs done here. Residents have been denied the opportunity to speak in opposition to the request. No written notice was given. There was no posting. According to the development code and the zoning guidelines, zoning regulations, notice and hearing is required for amendments to the zoning districts and the development code. And even in the section of the development code and the zoning regulations pertaining to temporary use permits, there's a provision there that only 2 temporary use permits can be granted for 1 year to any zoning district. Extensions of that also require public notice and public hearing. And I'm talking about the residents within 500 feet of the Masanavi House. None of us received any notification. In the agenda item summary that was sent to a representative of the neighborhood association, that document was not sent until the actual day that you made your decision. And the planning director, much to his credit, has acknowledged that staff could have done a better job in notifications. Unfortunately, that wasn't done. Now, there is one area that I disagree with staff over. That is that the planning director says that this was an interpretation of a lease. This was not an interpretation of the lease. This was a massive change to the development code and to the zoning regulations. What you have created is a special event center in a zoning district that is currently not allowing that kind of any use. Second item, council was misled. I looked at the minutes from the meeting, and Mayor Gallion is quoted in the minutes as having said in her summation that the neighbors being in full accord. Well, that is just not true. The neighbors, meaning the people, the 27 people that signed this petition within 500 feet, knew nothing about your action that evening. The league solicited letters of support from 2 commercial enterprises in the neighborhood and 1 nonprofit. The neighborhood was the neighbors were completely, the residents, I should say, were completely ignored. The council was made to look foolish because no less than, a little bit less than a month after your decision, the owners of the bungalows came forward with a proposal to remodel the Masanavi Cottage, provided they be given 12 special events. Meaning weddings is what we're talking about here in the special events. There's a lot of other special events, but weddings is the main.
Former
main
Mayor
consideration.
Costello, I need to
Yes.
call it.
Okay, so what you've created there is a potential domino effect now for all of the other existing nonprofits and so forth in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
We residents have been denied freedom of speech and due process of law in violation of the First, the Fourth, and the 14th Amendment. So I'm here tonight to ask one of you or more to simply agendize a reconsideration of this item so that we can have an opportunity to be heard.
Thank you
I'm
very
sorry
much.
I went over time. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak? So seeing none, comments from the public, let's go ahead and bring it back to council. And I am adjourning this meeting in honor of John Slack and Barbara Cullen. Thank you.